We're good. Okay, so I'm going to call to order the special meeting of the Charter Revision Commission for March 20th, 2025. Can we please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for being here. In the room with us today, if you can't really tell on camera, is First Selectman Bill Gerber and COO, is that correct? David Becker is here by my request. So to talk about our third agenda item. So our agenda is a little bit out of order tonight because I wanted to get you in here and have that conversation. We're going to have a discussion related to the town manager, CAO, COO. We're phrasing it that way because we don't want to have a discussion about any particular role. We're trying to, give a broad understanding of what's going on.
Okay.
So, to get this started, one of your recommendations to the CRC was to, I think the comment was to discuss memorializing
Yes.
some role in the charter.
Yes.
And to be clear, there is no town manager, CAO, or COO in the charter today.
Right.
Also worth noting, I think, that the current administration has a COO. The former administration had a CAO. I don't think Mr. Tetro's organization had a either chief of staff, but not. But anyway, suffice to say, the current and the last administration had someone in this kind of role, and it's our job tonight to discuss what is best to do about the charter. Would you like to make any opening comments about your comment? This is really addressing your thoughts on it.
Just on why I.
And why you think, right.
Well, I've been involved in town government now for over 10 years, 11 years. And when I was on the RTM, so one reason I think it should be memorialized is when I was on the RTM, former First Selectman Tetro just had had a few staff people. The staff got whittled away over the years through, some of it was political, probably cuts.
It happened, yeah.
And he was left with like an administrative assistant and a chief of staff. And then one year, almost felt like out of spite, but you're not supposed to assign, motives to people, but they cut his chief of staff from full-time to part-time. So we really had very little support. So that is one reason why I think memorializing the role, and I haven't gotten to why I think we should have a COO role there, but memorializing it eliminates some of that. It's sort of fraught when you've got a political person coming into a job. They've got a really important role. You need some continuity of administration. You need some high-level people that can carry on the functions. And if you really hamstring them by taking away staff, you're sort of setting them up to fail. So that's why I think we should have these in the charter. Are you kidding? Surprise guest.
Yeah.
Wow. Why I have a COO. So, when you look at town government, municipal government, at least in Fairfield, the way I see it is there's a few ways to keep taxes low or tax increases as low as possible. One is to increase development, increase the grand list. One is to cut services. Eventually, if you cut staff, if you cut expenses, you will ultimately get to cutting services. And one is to make the town more efficient. And I don't believe we've done a great job over the decades of keeping the town efficient. We have, through various boards and commissions, cut expenses and kept expenses increases reasonable that way. But when I look around and when I first got here and looked around, I see a lot of inefficiencies. It's just not a core competency maybe in a lot of municipalities, but certainly here, using systems, processes, taking a look at structures, organizational structures, and determining how could we deliver a high level of services better with either what we have or possibly even less. And some of those involve putting in, software, or, some of them involve getting two separate organizations to work together and making that happen. But there are certainly a lot of ways that we could make this town more efficient. And for that, you need somebody who lives and breathes efficiency. That's why I hired David Becker. He lives and breathes efficiencies. I could name a bunch right off the bat if you want examples, but coming in on day one, had a problem with our 911 call center. Looked like like organizationally we had a problem. David pulled me aside and said, I think we should do X, Y, Z. Met with the chief of police and his staff, and we accomplished a transformation of the 911 call center. That was a problem for years, for several years, and hadn't been addressed. You need somebody who sees it, gets into it, studies it, and figures out, how to make things more efficient. We had a problem with emergency management. For handling things, from floods and things like that, but also the big Fairfield U, parties on the beach. How are you going to organize around, keeping people safe and all that, and David as COO, our COO, I won't call him David, but our COO picked that up, brought together police, fire, emergency management in a way that just hadn't been done before to deliver a better service with the same people. So, there's a lot of examples. One would be construction management, which is really high impact for the town. We have not been a good manager of construction projects in this town over the years. And these are tens of millions of dollar, projects where with the blink of an eye, you could spend a few $1 million that had you been on top of things you otherwise would not have. And so David organized the creation of a construction management group, which will hopefully become a department with this budget. And we've already saved hundreds of thousands of dollars just by having that focus. Those would not happen without someone in this role, whatever you call them. I think it's important because, I do have a lot of business background, but not everyone who comes into this job does, and also I did need someone with more operational experience. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. I also want to recognize Select Person Kupchik is on, and I've invited Select Person Kupchik on to give her observations as she had a CAO. And I have the job description, Brenda, we're going to flash up, but would you mind giving some introductory comments about your thoughts on a CAO, COO, town manager?
Yeah, Chris, I can't see you guys because the agenda's up. Do you think you could take that down?
Sure. I can stop sharing.
Thanks. Well, I think you originally asked me if there should be, I think you asked about job descriptions. I don't think there are any job descriptions in the charter. And I would think that would be unusual to have an actual job description.
No, the question was that we're advocating putting the role in. We have a job description. Ms. Simpson provided me today a job description for the role. When we had our last meeting, we did not have a job description, and we just thought that was a little bit of background we should have had before we had this conversation, right? So what I'm really interested in hearing from you, and then I'll send it out to the commission, are your thoughts about having a person in this role. And if you agree or disagree with Selectman Gerber's, First Selectman Gerber's thoughts on what the role means.
Well, I sort of brought it to the forefront, right? You were on the Board of Finance at the time. And it was very apparent to me, and I would agree, I ran a business for a very long time, and I knew exactly what I needed to be successful. So it's when we asked for the transfer to add this, and we had done the research, and the majority of towns had a position similar, right? Somebody to assist. So I think the question in the last charter was chief of staff and COO, CAO, it's the same thing, being involved or being sort of in the charter so that in the event that people felt politically motivated to remove the positions, obviously not the people, because every administration gets to choose who their chief of staff is, and their inner circle, sort of. But the positions themselves, yeah, I agree. And if you look at other towns, it's a very similar model, structure model, that the CEO have people reporting to them and assisting them with their duties.
So you're an advocate of this.
I started it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think I am, yes.
Okay. Well, just trying to get the facts. So both our former first select person and our current select person is an advocate of adding some role into the charter. Okay, great. I also want to give Mr. Becker now. So I'm going to go on a limb here and say the role that Mr. Bremer had as CAO might be a little bit different than what you have today. So, but and we don't have the benefit of Mr. Bremer being here. So.
Well, I would just say, Chris, as I chose Mr. Bremer because he had a law degree and was a corporate attorney for a long time. And also because he was the chief of staff under Ken Flato, and I knew he understood how the government worked and what didn't work, so to speak, kind of understand how things worked. So that's why I chose him, and I was lucky enough to get him because he was retired and he didn't need a big salary. So, I think that everybody chooses how they want to run things. We were obviously in the midst of, cleaning up a public corruption scandal. There was, a lot of things going on that normal governments don't have to deal with. And so the first, year and a half was, the public corruption scandal, trying to fix a mismanaged government, and also a pandemic. So there was, a lot, everybody kind of was an all hands on deck thing. So that's why I wouldn't really, say it should be one certain thing, right? Each leader has their own way of leading or how they want things. And so I think, chief of staffs typically are the go-between between the CEO of a town and the department heads. And if it rises up, then they come, although I had an open door policy and everybody came to me, which was good because that's how you keep communication open and collaboration. But, each person can choose. Like, for example, I had Mr. Bremer working on Penfield because it was such a monster problem, having to deal with FEMA because he had a law license and could talk to them and deal with them. Dealing with the EP, all the environmental stuff and all of that stuff. And then also working with purchasing directly, because I found that was a very tedious job, and it takes a long time to sit with a purchasing director for hours and hours, looking over purchasing, and he could pick up if we could save money, if things hadn't gone out to bid in a long time, that kind of stuff, right? But I think each first select person should choose how they want to use their staff. I just think having the extra staff. Our town is very big. And again, the whole lean, I remember you were there, Chris, you were on the Board of Finance, members on the other side of the aisle saying we had to run our town lean and mean, and, to a point you do, but also you just need qualified people who are talented and are willing to roll up their sleeves and do the work, because there's always
Yep.
so much work. It's 24/7 job, and you need a couple of hands to help you out while you're trying to manage it all.
Got it. Yeah, and I just want to be clear. I'm not debating, Mr. Bremer's role or what he did or how well he did it, or Mr. Becker's role. I'm not debating any of that. What I really want to get to is,
Positions.
do we need this role, right? Because I'm of the opinion, and then I'm going to let Mr. Becker speak for a couple minutes. I'm going to let it go to the commission. I'm of the opinion that this, if we do add this to the charter, there should not be a lot of meat behind this, right? There has to be a CO. I'm going to make this up, right? Just 1/7 of the commission. There needs to be a COO, and he's got to report to the first selectman. There should not be a lengthy 20-page description of what those job descriptions are, because you have a different opinion than Ms. Kupchik did, right? And back to the fact that there is a job description, right? So when we go to hire or appoint this person, we can point to, again, this is our theme, right? We're going to point back to job descriptions, and we're going to say, oh, I think the person I'm going to appoint has all these responsibilities, right? So, I mean, that's kind of where I'm headed. So I appreciate the comments. I'd like to hand it over to Mr. Becker for a couple seconds, just to get his 2 cents on what you think the role is and how important this role is generically.
Yeah, so I was in favor of it when the last administration added the role. And while this administration has changed the titling and some of the way the responsibilities work to shape around it, I think that is in part where having the role, but even the flexibility a little bit in the titling. You don't want to go too far off, but there
Right.
there are some nuances beyond the job description and how you title and then manage that oftentimes, the chief executive having some amount of latitude. So I think flexibility
Right.
there is important. But I was certainly in favor of that. And I do think that codifying this and maybe even the chief of staff role within the charters is certainly things to be discussed, because I think the several administrations ago, certainly when that occurred, it really, I think to
The
the
chief of staff
community,
role, yes.
it ultimately, there, many reasons around at the time, but it's sort of a gut punch to the community when you start to drop staffing out, too far back. And the reality is the complexities that our community is facing now, but will be facing over the next 10 or 20 years. You have to assume the charter, even just this iteration, the next time somebody looks at it, could conceivably be a decade, or in this case, almost 2 decades out.
Almost 20
You've got to
years,
sort
yeah,
of
right.
forecast that far that the complexities are only going to grow
Right.
as we just development and just society as a whole. And so codifying some of these things now is a good opportunity. So, differences between the prior role to now, to now is noted somewhat in the description, but there are, some of it is within direct reports and taking sort of
Right.
literal like pillars of functions and having that, but at the same time, I think as I understand it from the prior person in this general role, there's only one other to compare, but
Right.
For that end, my understanding is that they did operate organization wide on a day-to-day basis to to deal with what people in those roles oftentimes do, which is functionally, operationally, day-to-day pieces. That is, while there's visibility and involvement, and I think this town has a history of very involved for select people as their chief executives, but there's an element there where they should be strategic and they should be if you just delineate your corporate
Tactical versus strategic kind of stuff,
I think there's
right?
a piece there. I oftentimes say that my best days and probably the bulk of my days are spent really going out and trying to break barriers through the entire organization, not just not just in the direct reporting structure, but through the whole
Sure.
organization. If someone's got something that needs a barrier broken to get something done, you can connect those dots and you can see that piece towards the larger mission. And I think that you know, that is something that everybody as a part of the team does, but I think in this particular role, you do that more on a daily basis and more broadly, and having that there frees up some of the other people from doing that at times. So, yeah, I'm a proponent. I've watched, you know, as you know, Kupchak and many others. You know, I lived in this town almost my entire life and watched it grow, and watched political part for probably the, you know, governmental since, you know, 18 at least, and you know, the way this town has evolved, it to not have those types of things codified at this stage would be, I think, a disservice. So.
I would agree. And just so we're 100% clear for anyone who's listening, or for the record, the first selectman doesn't have the bandwidth to do this stuff, right? Is that a fair statement, Ms. Kupchak and Mr. Gerber?
That is a fair statement. I mean, I'll go first, but first selectman doesn't have the bandwidth to do the job they should do. Some of this stuff requires at times micromanaging, and definitely don't have the bandwidth to micromanage everything. And you can hire great department heads who do a great job with their department, but sometimes there's a lot of efficiencies to be gained cross department.
Sure.
Not sometimes, often. And, you know, making that happen isn't always, you know, obvious. You got to really dig in. So the one thing on a slightly separate topic is, if you're going to talk about a town manager, that is a different animal altogether. So
Yeah. I think we're kind of past that, but
Okay.
again, what I'm trying to do with this commission is not limit people, right?
Right.
So we throw out these three names, you know, select person, Kupchak called it a CAO, you call it a COO. Town manager's been bantered around in some of the correspondence we've got from taxpayers. I just want to make sure that we're addressing. I'm with you. I think that's the wrong term, right?
So, and I think what former First Selectwoman Brenda Kupchak said was, you know, when she came in, it was a different time, and her needs were very, very different.
For sure.
Yeah. So, and she, I assume, hired someone who was a person for the times, and worked on things that his background were really germane to. And you know, I came in a very, very different atmosphere. So.
Yeah. And I think our goal has to be, I'm sorry, Brenda, for cutting you off. Our goal is got to be to put something a little more generic in this charter, so that we can address the Brenda Kupchak, what she had to deal with. And again, I would say it's a lot different than what you had to come up with. And that role should be able to, we shouldn't codify it so much that we put it in a box and that doesn't work for Brenda, but it works for you, or vice versa, right? We can't write the COO or CAO role for what Selectman Kupchak was going through, because that would be a horrible, horrible thing to have to write down, you know, my estimation, so.
Well, Chris, I would just say that, you know, yeah, the bandwidth, you know, obviously your department heads come to you and you work with them, and you should have faith in them and always have their back. But, you know, going back to what I said earlier, right? Just having the extra hands, just having, you know, if there's 4 meetings going on in one day, your chief of staff takes one, your CAO, COO takes one, you know, everybody's juggling together, you work as a team. I would just recommend, if you wanted to try to just make it easy, I would just say CAO, COO, you know, / so you people can call it whatever they want, but and I don't know if you're also looking at the chief of staff, but I do think that's a important role.
That has not been a recommendation so far, and I actually don't think, I'm just looking at the 20, we do spend some time looking at the 2022 recommendations. It does not look like they codified a chief of staff role either, but.
They did.
Yeah, I think.
They did the chief of staff and CAO, I thought.
It's certainly worth.
Not that I'm seeing, but.
I still think it's something, you know, to the point earlier that it was made as sort of political, or if it was used politically to cut the position. And you're just cutting the town's ability to respond to what's happening every day. And, if you have a very qualified person in that position, they do a lot of good work. And they're responding to residents, they're attending meetings, they're, always there when department heads need them. So I think actually, I don't know if you guys have it, but I mean, if you look at the other towns, they all have chief of staffs.
Yeah.
And they have the other CAO, COO position. Towns our size anyway. We are the 11th largest municipality in the state.
Yeah. Let me take back what I just said. There is a line here that says the first select person is entitled to appoint a chief of staff and administrative assistant or equivalent positions. I don't know what the equivalent wording is in the current charter. Okay, so, very good. All right, thank you all for your inputs. I'm gonna throw it up to the commission. Any other questions? I've used our time here so far, so any commissioner have a question?
I guess I do, just to make sure I'm clear on the exact question we're trying to solve. My read of the 2006, so the active charter, is that you do have, the first select person has the ability to appoint, but the Board of Finance and RTM through the budget process may choose not to fund.
Right.
So the question is not, can you appoint? The question is, can it be rejected essentially from via a funding mechanism?
And I
That's a
think
good
that's
point.
what happened, yeah.
Okay.
That's a good point.
They can appoint assistants, I mean, there's
Yeah.
wording in that allows
Right.
many different things.
Right.
But in a lot of instances in the charter, there's some very, like the bigger positions are
Mm-hmm.
specifically codified to ensure that there's, so
Yeah,
that they're not-
this
yeah.
would codify.
You must have a Parks and Rec director, and there's,
You can't,
you can't cut that through the budget process.
Yeah.
But I mean, yes, and chief of staff had, in Mr. Tetro's administration, was cut out through the budget process because, I was there, so I know that for sure.
Chris, I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner McInerney.
If someone were to ask me after this meeting was over, what you discuss, while we discussed the need of a chief administrative officer to assist the first selectman in running the day-to-day operations, how would I distinguish the chief administrative officer job from the chief of staff job?
well, that's a really good question, and that's sort of why I went with the chief operating officer. I was more concerned with operations, and the chief of staff does a fair amount of the administrative work. But you should ask, Selectman Kopchak that maybe?
Well, I would say that's why we were discussing earlier not to attach, any kind of job description to either one of them. The simple fact that our town is so big, and there are so many different issues happening. So for example, the next first select person may say, I want my, chief of staff to have a law degree, or my CAO to have a law degree, or I want, them to help with this. Like, I think it's really based on what that person needs. As long as the needs are getting met, if residents call and the phone gets picked up, the emails get answered, you're able to produce and send out information through a newsletter communication, so our community's up to date about everything happening, which takes time to put together. Attending all kinds of meetings, the leader of the town is just one person, and when you're working all day managing the operations with your staff, then you have to attend, a chamber event at night, or you have to do this, or you have to do that. That's the role of the leader, to do all these sort of ceremonial things. And then it's good to have someone else, catching up on that. Maybe they attend a meeting and then they come back and you have your internal staff meetings and everybody's kept up to date about what's happening and making decisions on how you move forward each day. So I don't think you need sort of like, the chief of staff does A, B, C, and the CAO, COO does, the rest. So I think it has to be more personal, and depending on, the level or the talent that you're bringing in, if you have a different set of talent for the chief of staff, you see somebody who's really motivated and hardworking, but they have these skill sets. You put the people where you want them, where you think you need the most attention.
So just to be clear, I don't think anyone on this commission wants to put a job description in there. That's not our intention, right?
Yeah,
So we can
I don't
we can
think we
get
should
past
do
that. But Commissioner McInerney's question is valid, because in the 2022 revision, there's literally one sentence. The first select person is entitled to appoint a chief of staff, period. And then there's 4 paragraphs that describe the CAO. So it, just from sheer volume, it begs the question, Commissioner McInerney's question is that, is the CAO, I don't want to say more powerful, but you know what I'm saying. They spent a lot more time fleshing out a CAO role than they did. They're kind of like, oh yeah, let's add a sentence, make sure he can have this person.
Well, Chris, I would say that at that time, I think most of the commission felt very comfortable with the chief of staff being codified in the charter. So they didn't really go into it because everybody agreed, but there was a lot of consternation and I would say political stuff going on about the CAO. Why do we need it? Yeah, I guess they felt they needed to beef that up because there was a lot of arrows coming in at that position being created and codified in the charter. So that's probably why it was written like that.
Okay. So, it begs a question for me, and then I'll bring it back to Commissioner McInerney. Why can't under this simple paragraph that says the first selectman is entitled to appoint a chief of staff and administrative assistant and a COO or equivalent positions? Do we need to do any more than that? Because we
Except for
don't.
what your commissioner just said, right? I think he makes and I can't see, so I don't know. I'm
It's
sorry.
Commissioner McInerney.
Oh, no, sitting with you.
Oh, Commissioner Treshik.
Oh, hi. I'm sorry. I couldn't see. You mentioned about the funding aspect, and you know what? That might be something, I don't know how you handle that, but that was like, you appoint them, right? But if the RTM cuts that position, so you're kind of undercutting so if you say, oh, we're only gonna make it a part-time position, they could essentially, theoretically, cut it. So I don't know how
So
you
could
handle
the first
that.
selectman, could have a budget and say, this is gonna be a half-time role, and the budget will be, in line with a half-time role, right?
Right, but what if you end up having a first select person who does want those 2 positions as codified in the charter if it passes? And then you have, a political cut, or if somebody wants to cut that position down to part-time. So I don't know how, I know you have the charter attorney, and maybe they could figure out how to write something that would protect that position or positions. I'm not a lawyer, obviously.
It's an interesting point. It's been used on the chief of staff and those more because
Sure.
of the types of roles they are, but the same exact argument could be applied towards any of the department heads. So
That's exactly right.
one interesting thing would be if
Yeah.
I would say if you were looking at doing something to protect it, you may want to protect it more blanket through like, these are full-time positions, they should be, you could debate the word appropriately, but appropriately funded but you'd have to probably apply, a way would be to apply it across the board, and that, you can't just say to you brought, some of these positions up, you just axe it and it's not in the budget or something to that effect. It sort of says you've got to fund these.
My personal opinion is that there's a budget process, right? And the first selectman makes a budget and says, here's my staff. So let's just talk about today. There is a COO role today that I'm sure is in your budget book that is not in the charter, right? And if anybody on the Board of Finance or a majority of the Board of Finance or a majority of the RTM says, I don't think so, it's gone. The funding for that role is gone, right? I don't think it's our role, frankly, to bulletproof those kind of, any of those roles, right? I mean,
But I guess the question is, so department heads, other roles that are codified in the charter, is there a need to protect, quote unquote, those roles in the budgeting process? Personally, I think no, but I think that's the question.
I think the roles that are bulletproofed in the charter are the ones that are demanded by state statutes. You have to have a Parks and Rec director. Yep.
But
You're
you probably didn't say-
appointing, but I guess where I'm going, and maybe Selectman Kupchak is correct that we have to maybe bring our lawyer in for this, but any word that says appoint doesn't necessarily mean that it's, I keep using the word bulletproof, I don't know a better word, but
Full-time.
not full-time.
I don't know, but that, to your point, do you want to put it so much of a box around how the town is organized? And there has to be some level of give and take in the budget process.
What if the next selectman says, I don't want chief staff? And we say in here, gotta be chief staff, gotta be full-time, and he or she says, I don't want that person. You've both made it very clear that whoever this person is, you want to be able to have, you both want to have a person, I get it, and you want to use them however you want. But we also have to think about the fact that the next person might say, no, I don't need a chief staff.
I highly doubt that.
But also,
Could happen.
just combine it with
I'm
something else.
just telling you, there's no way you're gonna say, I don't want help.
So the
You
person's
need
entitled.
it, trust me.
Yeah.
That's why you get around that.
Yeah, I thought that the purpose of putting it in the charter is to semi-bulletproof it so that it wouldn't be subject to the political, vagaries of like the chief of staff role. If it's in there, then you won't have, one party cutting it just to try to undermine someone's administration. We need those other roles by state statute, but we do need a functional administration to function. So, and so it would be protecting, it would be protecting the office, sort of.
If we put it in the charter, it doesn't make it bulletproof, but it gives it a layer of protection.
Yeah.
Give it a layer of credibility, or I don't think it's this one.
That-
And again,
And any act against it is just more of an overt act. It's more-
correct.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
And I guess where I struggle with this a little bit, I'm getting mail every day and saying, oh, the 2022 charter was amazing. Why don't you look at it more? Well, we look at it a lot.
Right.
And that 2022 commission thought that the chief of staff needed one sentence and the chief administrative officer needed 5 paragraphs. So to me, that doesn't feel equal. In fact, I'll even go one further. It doesn't say anything about the chief of staff other than first selectman gets to pick it. Under chief administrative officers, it says you have to have qualifications. Qualifications shall be prepared by the director of human resources, who shall also pre-qualify that candidate for the position before it's interviewed by the first selectman.
Well, again, Chris, that was a lot of political, people showing up at the CRC meetings, rallying against the CAO. And that was a lot of political nonsense. So I see why they did that, because there was like I said, there was politics, a huge amount involved. So everyone agreed about the chief of staff. There was consternation about this, creating another person to help the first select person's office. So that's exactly why that was done. Not because they felt it was more valuable. It was just because there was no argument about the chief of staff.
I'd like to add to that, though, because I did watch all the meetings, and there was also a long debate about what the title should be, the difference between a chief administrative officer and a town manager. They went, did all this research, came back and debated it ad nauseum. Chief administrative officer, chief operating officer. So part of this was mentally they're trying to wrap their arms around what the function of this person is. So.
Okay. Any other
Just-
commissioner? Oh,
just
Commissioner
one other
Treshik, please.
question is, you specifically asked us in what was approved by the board, select persons to look at the town administrator, quote unquote, different titles, but consider making this position an ex officio member without vote on all boards and commissions. Is that something that you're still thinking we should consider as part of it?
I think it would be helpful, because, like Brenda just said, if you can't go to a meeting, there are certain commissions where, like the CFO is ex officio, but if I can't go to a meeting, it would be very, very helpful to have your right-hand person be able to go and speak for you and make sure that, you're heard and
And without that,
I didn't hear, Chris, what you guys were saying. What was this
So,
role that would
yes.
have a voting?
the recommendation was whether or not this potential role, CAO, COO, would be an ex officio member. without
Non-voting.
vote.
Non-voting.
Of all boards and commissions.
So if the first select person can't go to a meeting, they would have a seat at the table, be able to ask questions and all that.
Well, I think they still could. I'm not sure it needs to be codified in the charter. I think the CFO, was written back because they go to pension board meetings and all of that, basically on their financial acumen, and also that they are the CFO of the town. So they're involved in everything going on. I'm not sure we should be giving, ex officio status to staff members. I think they can go on behalf of the elected official, and people will respect them and allow them to have input. But I don't know that we would want to codify that in the charter. I would actually ask the charter attorney and the attorneys on your commission. Maybe they can give you a little color if that's something that goes on in other towns. It seems a little unusual though.
Interesting. Any other, Commissioner Blanco, Commissioner McInerney, Commissioner McCann, any other questions, thoughts?
Any comments? Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner Blanco.
No, I don't have any comments.
Oh, no comments. Oh,
No,
okay.
no.
Okay. Commissioner Treshik?
I think I've asked my questions, at this point. Just probably for education for the broader group, one thing we have already decided is that we will be pointing, in the recommended changes, I should say, that when we have jobs, we'll point it back to a paragraph in the charter that will talk about how the HR department will, maintain the job descriptions and things like that. And that's where the chair is going, as far as not having job descriptions written into the charter or anything like that.
That makes
I think
sense.
it could fit nicely. I guess the question, Mr. Becker, with the whole ex officio without vote aspect, have you run into any issues in performing your role by not having the proper access or authority, quote unquote?
I've had a handful where most, you show up and you're there and they know who you are and they want you to basically be at the table and participate because they want to hear, how you engage, particularly if the first selectman is not there.
Sure.
I've one that happened at a commission, and actually was where they went to executive session and purposefully excluded, and I was literally the person who had the most information related to it, and it was sort of just maybe we can get into the why, but it you can run, that sort of forces the issue in anything.
Yeah.
Same, I've gone to some where, no, that's okay, you can sit over there, and I'm like, okay, well, I've been asked by, my boss to show up here, and again, I have the most information.
Yeah.
So there are some, I think 99% of the time, it's, I think for that 1% it counts, and I think from a day-to-day operating, I happen to, and I think everybody, it depends in part on the role, but I happen to go to, it's back to my years on the board, I'm just used to being out almost every night of the week, so I'm at a lot, so I make sure that we can, divide and conquer a lot. I do think even if in there, if you were to look at something like this, possibly tied to the chief of staff as well, not necessarily that role, or some sort of designee type wording. But I think it would be helpful. It has no vote. There's no, at the end the boards or commissions are going to do, but we have 100 roughly. And actually seems like it's ever increasing, which is causing a need to divide and conquer even more. And also they run oftentimes, you're fortunate, like Chris has been on an elected board for a really long time, so he understands a lot of this. But, a lot of these, we're oftentimes going out to them when possible, and probably plan over time to do more. I would hope people in future roles would do it, because you sort of, all things ultimately lead back to the first selectman's office or key staff in those operational departments. So being out on the ground is important. So, it's a daunting thing to manage with all the meetings, but, you either have the ability to, you guys are nice enough to come sit at the table and sort of dialogue, but it's entirely possible that I find myself or the chief of staff or others will find themselves at a meeting with a commission of 5, board of 5 people dealing with something that, some sort of an issue, and it's, well, sit in the back of the room, and by the way, we don't even take public comment, but nope, and they don't, whether they know or not, there's an element there, and I think that's where that stems from. It's one of those things, use cautiously and do it, but.
It's a very good point, because last meeting, we were talking about ex officio member, about the Board of Education. Only the chair, as is stated in the current charter, is an ex officio member of the RTM. But all of the Board of Finance, every member is an ex officio member. So we made a sensitive body that all the members, right? And we're like, and why was it important? Because if they caucus, and you're a Democrat, so Jeff Peterson's a Republican, so he can caucus with the Republican caucus of the RTM, but not with the Democrat, so anyway. But it's, and I made a joke, and I said, oh, the ex officio gets you a good seat, right? That's what it really gets you. But what did it really get you? I didn't think about this. It's make comment when there's not public comment, because there's a lot of those meetings, right?
Right.
And to be included in private executive sessions. That's the real
You are included
reason.
in the executive session
Yeah.
with your ex officio?
Yes.
Okay.
So
I have to
that's,
say, I don't know about that. Executive sessions are very, very sensitive. And the only people allowed in those are the town attorney and, elected officials. And.
well, Mr. Brummer was in a lot of, was in a
No, he
lot of
wasn't in any executive sessions of the Board of Selectmen.
Board
or
of
any other-
Finance executive session. Mr. Brummer was in there a lot, because we were talking about financials, dealing with the fill pile, because he was a subject matter expert.
Well, but why would it be an executive session?
There was some reason, I can't give you a specific example, but there was.
I don't recall that, because, in my opinion, executive sessions are always like to talk about a legal issue or something, highly sensitive, personnel, things like that. I would just caution, and maybe have the charter attorney take a look back at other towns, because I don't know that anybody besides, the elected officials are allowed in there, besides the designated attorney. So I don't know. Listen, I think it's unusual, but I would ask the charter attorney. They'll probably know a lot more.
Yep. Nope.
than
Duly
any of
noted.
us know.
Duly noted. Again, is there any other commissioner that wants questions, comments?
It would be my observation, if we're creating this position and identifying the position, and we want to also distinguish it from the chief of staff, that we make the position ex officio member. Just a further delineation of the role of the person we're defining from staff, and it gives the first selectman some leeway on getting responsibility, right, that somebody goes in their stead. It also,
Okay. I don't disagree with that.
And David mentioned how many boards and commissions we have, and sometimes they meet at the same time, and it's just not possible to hit all of them. So
Got it. All right, so I wanted to share, I normally don't share comments made, this particular day, so I think everyone knows, if you've been listening to this long enough, that all of our public comment is on our website. Every word is up there. Now, we received comment, and I will share my screen. The only reason I'm saying we should take a look at this real quick is this comment is specifically about the CAO or COO role from Ms. Griffin. And, her basic comments are that she doesn't see, she believes, I'm in favor of a town administrator as is filled and functioned in Darien, Greenwich, and other towns. So what she did, and again, I cannot vouch for any of this information, so I have to take it at face value just for maybe discussion purposes. But she did provide this little list. Greenwich with, this is the, talk about the town administrator. So it at least appears that Greenwich does have a codified town administrator. I don't know if it's codified in the charter, doesn't say that. It just says that it's a paid administrative staff, which, so is our COO today, but it's not codified in the charter, right? Apparently Westport's the same way, apparently Darien, same way, and Wilton. So I just wanted to bring that up. She did have, again, she had some comments about, and this will all be up on the website tomorrow, but I strongly suggest you think twice about codifying a position that's currently functioning. She also did bring up, as Ms. Kupchak has brought up a couple times, that this was quite a political lightning rod the last time, right? And, we have two stated goals in this Charter Revision Commission. One is to accept and review every piece of comment that we get from every taxpayer. And the second is to make a recommendation that we feel will pass a referendum. So for the commissioners, I would just say, I guess that's not something we should overlook, I guess, right? It was a lightning rod last time. Is it going to be a lightning rod again? I don't know. So, any other thoughts from the commission? Oh, I'm sorry, Brenda, did you have your hand up? I'm sorry.
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Becker.
Comment, it might come in the post thing, it might be optimistic, but you have a Republican and a Democrat, the former and the current, who are both advocating for this line. So, however this thing, when it goes out to the next wave, it seems to be in a world of sometimes disagreement, a rather universal piece here, so.
I appreciate that comment. I think the success of this next charter revision is going to rely on educating a lot of people, right? And if people are willing to be educated, and we could say things like, well, the last Republican did it and the current Democrat did it, and both of them think it's a good idea, you'd think it would have led a level of credibility, right? I agree with you. But one of the reasons, I think from the last time, I'm not trying to be critical, there wasn't a lot of education behind this. And, we need to have a little bit of a PR campaign, for lack of a better word, when we get all done with this, and kind of make sure people really understand. That's why I'm trying to get in your newsletters. I came to your Board of Selectmen meeting. So, but that's a good question. A good comment. Thank you. We do have officially have a a job description. So that does lend back to that other comment. I don't know the official words that I would put in the charter right at this point, but I think as a general sense of the body, I'll make a motion that we include under section 6.2, which is the first selectman, a new category that defines the appointed roles of chief of staff And I'm with Brenda, CAO/COO. Why do we need to codify it that much, right? So is it kind of the highest level I can make? Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Blanco. Any further discussion? I mean, we'll have to put some words behind this, right? And we can get words. We've got the job description. I really liked some of the words in the 2022 recommendation. I think we can steal those. But I truly feel if we're going to spend maybe we don't need to spend 4 paragraphs. I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but if we're going to spend 4 paragraphs fleshing out a COO, man, I think we should be spending at least a paragraph fleshing out chief of staff. I'm sorry. It seems it needs to be a little more balanced, right?
Just a discussion, Chair. I guess there's potentially 3 sense of the bodies here. I mean, 1, there is the CAO, COO. 2, ex officio membership or not.
Oh,
And then I'd be curious if we were to potentially, not when writing the charter, if they both pass our sense of the body, but do we have a different opinion on CAO versus chief of staff?
I'll be happy to change my sense of the body. I'll make a sense of the body that we add specific language associated with the chief of staff as a non-ex officio member and CAO, COO as an ex officio member to all boards and commissions. Would you like to second that again, Mr. Blanco or Commissioner Blanco?
Second.
I think that's important. Thank you for bringing that up.
Is there,
Debate, please.
I have a question, Chris. Am I understanding now what you're saying is that we're going to articulate specific responsibilities or some level of specific responsibilities as to each position? Or were we going back to what I thought was the initial process? The charter would say the first selectman can appoint the staff, period. The first selectman can also appoint a chief administrative officer as an ex officio member of, boards or whatever. I thought that's where this was going.
Yeah, I'm not advocating that we go into painful detail about the job description. So I think it's more to what you're saying.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
A short write-up that says, I really don't want to define, the only thing that I think is relevant, and we can talk about this when we get into real words, is that both of these people, whoever they are appointed by the first selectman. Stop.
Stop. That's stop.
Would we point it, I can't remember the paragraph name anymore.
2.6, well, in this charter, it's 2.6. Yes, I think, yes.
For the job description.
For both of them, absolutely. I think we made a generic sense of the body that any role that's going to be in the charter now is going to point back to that paragraph. And that paragraph then points back to Ms. Simpson's office and says, if you want to go hire any person, you got to go talk to the HR director and open up a filing cabinet and get out a job description before you put it out in the street.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just add a general question? I'm just trying to I don't remember the number. What's the total budget of the town?
What's it this year? 380? Oh, 380 million. 2/3 of that's 2/3 is board ed this year? I mean, usually.
Roughly.
That's usually what it is, right? Still know those numbers, Dave.
Good job.
Pathetic. I don't know if it's good job or pathetic.
You can't forget.
Yeah, I know. You can't undo that. No, can't undo that.
It wasn't 380 when you were on. It's a little less.
It was, I think my last budget was like 320 something.
I was gonna say, I think I was on when we crested 3 the first time.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. Okay. I'm good. Anything else from any other commissioner?
Do we want to vote on a sense of the body?
Oh, we didn't vote. I just had that's right. Sorry, I made a sense of
We need
it.
it for approval.
Okay, we absolutely do. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Prue, that's unanimous. 5-0. Yeah, we are 5 right now. Yeah. Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner McInerney. For Selectmen, COO, thank you very much for your time and your
Thank you very
Testimony?
much. Thanks for giving us the time.
Justin.
Heading over to Board of Finance.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Give
Good
my
luck, everybody.
Please give the board my best. Thank you, Ms. Kupchak.
Hello.
Nice to see you, Daniel.
Hello, Polar Bear. How's it going?
Pretty good, how about you?
Okay.
If I could take a point of personal reference.
Please.
I'd like to introduce my son, Campbell. So Campbell is the illustrious intern.
Yes,
Put together
Campbell.
The charter research this summer, so.
We've been using a lot of your good work, Campbell, so thank you very much. We appreciate everything you did.
Campbell's on spring break, so he wanted to come by and see how the sausage is made.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you for coming by. Okay.
Chris, am I good?
Yes, Commissioner, thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good night. Jerry's gonna go watch St. John's, so we're letting him off the hook tonight.
John's doesn't play till like 9:45.
Yeah, well, I think there's probably some pre-game celebration maybe to go on. He is in Vegas, so I don't want to go on the record as saying too much, so. Agenda item number 4, Chairman's update. That was a great session. This is what I think this is all about, is getting the right people in the room and asking them the hard questions and getting through stuff. So thank you very much. I'm going to call on Commissioner Blanco to help me with one of my updates. So this week, spent some time on the phone and email with our police chief, because there was some comments made through public comment, multiple comments, that we do not need a police commission. And that is erroneous. We absolutely do. So as a member of the police commission, I asked Commissioner Blanco to go on the record and just state why we do need a police commission and what's driving that, the Connecticut state statute and such. So, Commissioner Blanco.
Yeah, Chair, thank you for the time. Good evening, everybody. The Police Accountability Act, amongst other general statutes, established the Police Commission under Section 7274, establishment by ordinance of Town Police Commission. Any town may ordinance establish a police commission to be elected in accordance with the provisions of Sections 9201, or be appointed by council or board of directors of the town, the common council or other body empowered to make ordinance of a city, the board of burgesses, or a borough or board of selectmen. It goes on to Section 7.275. The Board of Police Commissioners shall elect its member to be a chairman and one member to be a clerk, and shall hold regular meetings and keep records of same. Meetings shall be held upon the call of the chairman and the majority of the members of the board. A majority of the board shall constitute a quorum. In the event any vacancy of the board of selection shall have the authority to, by majority, to fill such vacancy until the next town election. Powers of commissions, Section 7276, such boards shall have all the powers given to the general statutes of the Board of Police Commissioners, obviously referring back to Connecticut statute, shall have general management and supervision, I'm reading this right from the statute, of the police department of such town and of the property and equipment used in connection therewith, shall make all needful regulations for the government thereof, not contrary to law, and may be prescribed suitable penalties for the violation of such regulation, including suspension or removal from any office or member of such police department. Such board shall have the sole power of appointment, promotion, removal of officers, and members of such police department under such regulation as adopts for the purpose, and such appointees shall hold offices during and under these regulations. It goes on, Chair. There's Section 2.7 that talks about the expenses of the police department and the staff. Section 7.277A speaks to police assistant agreements. It's pretty effusive, the response. So on multiple statutes and general statutes in our state, the requirement of a police commission has been established and ordained a very long time ago. So I'm Chair, I'm a little confused as to the genesis of the question, that it's not a statutory requirement. And what I've just read is exactly what it reads.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Blanco. Again, also a police commissioner.
And
As
I'll
far
just
as
add
I-
one more, and I'll just
Sure.
add one more thing, Chair. If you are to make the police commission by statute because of the Police Accountability Act, you can't make the commission gets more prescriptive, more onerous. It doesn't become weaker. So if you're going to make a change to the commission, it would only embellish its duties and powers. That
Yeah.
you can't go back.
Absolutely right.
okay.
Yeah. You can't minimize the commission through
Correct.
through a
Correct.
charter review. Right.
Correct. Unless obviously the Connecticut state decides to change the
Right.
Connecticut state law.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you.
Is that clear, Chair?
It crystal clear to me. And again, communication I had with the police chief, he also responded to me via email to make this crystal clear. So thank you very much. I think that puts that to bed. One last thing. Again, this was a multiple comment from taxpayer, and again, I want to put that to bed. That's all I have. Next topic is our CRC attorney or town attorney inputs. On our website, we've added a new section down here, legal opinions, and there's actually one in there today. So that's good news. This particular one, if you have desire to go look at it, talks about a topic that was brought before us by public comment by Ms. Ewing. I think it was 2 meetings ago. Ms. Ewing stated that we make sense of the body motions to collect our thoughts, and then those thoughts are then translated into a working document. Ms. Ewing's statement was that each one of those sensitive bodies would have to be a formal vote before we move the document forward. And I spoke to Attorney Bucksbaum, and he codified in this note on his letterhead that is not true. So we can go through, we can collect all our inputs, we will generate one document, a red line document, if you will. That red line document then go out to all the commissioners. I could say, oh, we misspelled this word, and Commissioner Trescher could say, oh, we forgot to put in this thing, and Commissioner Blanco could say what else. And we would roll up that document, and the only specific real vote, if you will, we would have to take is if after we've all looked at it and we're in the red line, and somebody looks at it and says, oh, this is wrong, we need to change this language to this language. That has to be an official vote. Anything after the final red line has been issued to the commission for review will then be a formal vote would be needed to make those changes. After that, there's only one other vote on the entire document, and that vote is to move the official recommendation of the Charter Revision Commission to the town clerk. So that is another public comment that I want to put to bed, and I know, sorry, Commissioner McInerney wasn't on for that because he was the one that specifically asked that we clear that up. So anyway, we're good on that. Agenda item 7, continued discussion on Inland Wetlands Commission. Mr. Bishop. There he is. Hello, Mr. Bishop.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
How are you?
Board
I'm
member?
well, thank you. Thanks for being on. We,
Hey, Tim.
Hi, everybody.
we had a vigorous discussion at our last meeting, and I'm sorry that I don't think we invited you, which is in my error. But we had talked about the possibility, or really what the Conservation Commission is and what the Inland Wetlands, the fact that the Wetland Commission is really just a sub-factor or a subset of the Conservation Commission. So we made a couple recommendations, but one of the recommendations that was requested was that the Wetland Commission be broken out, and we did not move that forward. So before, I wanted to make sure we put a bow around this. I wanted to get your input on what you thought about separating the Wetland Commission from the Conservation Commission, is that a good idea? Is that worth something we should revisit?
I would say, in my opinion, since I've been here, that it would not be a good idea to split. I'm currently vice chair of my own inland wetlands board in my town, so I have experience on a board after hours, as well as staff in my town of Fairfield position. I think I guess I would point to a couple things on why I don't think it's a good idea. And I think, to point out, number one, we have 7 full members and 3 alternate members on the Conservation Commission, and they do act as both a commission and as inland wetland agency, and they're outstanding. I think town residents who have interacted with the department and both the commission and the agency have seen a change in recent years, and I would say that's noticeably for the better. And I think it really has to do with the current members and the structure that has been a consistent protocol reviewing applications. And to the point that keeping them the same members wearing different hats, I would say that all the current members since I've been here are very good at knowing which role they're in at which meeting. So the commission itself has a specific role as it relates to town open space and management of almost 1,300 acres, and not including conservation easements on private property. I don't know that acreage figure, but it would be large as well. When they're acting as inland wetland agency, it's regulatory. Commission is, I would say, more in an advisory and management capacity. I would point out that from what I've learned, that town of Fairfield was the first municipality to have a conservation department, and that along with that went the commission and agency, the first one in the state, and maintaining them together, I would say, is if it's not broke, don't fix it kind of thing. It's worked for this long, over 50 years, and I really don't see the advantage to splitting it. And I would caution that professionals and dedicated residents with this type of niche aren't common. So I would caution that splitting them would dilute and reduce the effectiveness that we currently have for protection of natural resources, both town-owned and those on private property, under regulatory jurisdiction. Those are my initial comments. I don't know how far you want me to go.
No, I think that's great. Did we have any, again, we had a lengthy debate and we really took no action.
Correct.
We just wanted to make sure taking no action was the right thing to do, which it does seem as if Mr. Bishop is agreeing with us, yes?
We discussed 3 items related to this combined commissions. One, around changing the process of appointment to require approval by the RTM. Today, I think it was solely appointed by the first select person, I believe. So that was a change we made across the board in the sense of the body. There was also a recommendation about requiring training and putting it in the charter. We decided not to take action on that. And then we discussed this, but didn't take action. So, Mr. Bishop, Eric Trushik, one of the commissioners, vice chair, a question on the feedback that we did get from some was really around the fact that the inland wetlands is a regulatory agency. There are certain legal requirements on timing and procedures and such, and those just the urgent versus the important in a way that you have to do certain things at a certain timeline, and that doesn't leave sufficient time to address the more strategic but not urgent aspects of conservation. Do you see that playing out at all where the commission, the combined commission, is not able to effectively spend the time it needs to think about the more the strategic planning related to conservation or anything like that?
No, I don't. I haven't seen that be any, present any type of obstacle in the almost 4 years that I've been in this role. I think it's actually an advantage to have the same commissioners acting as inland wetland agency members, knowing, having a better sense of the town. And there is often a lot of overlap with a certain, say, wetlands application that also has a conservation easement with possible encroachment. So I think to support my initial argument that splitting the commission from the agency would, in fact, cause additional delays that don't occur right now, with having to bring in 10 new people to go over an issue that's part of a regulatory application with the agency, as it relates to the commission's purview with a conservation easement. So that does happen a lot, and I think a split board would slow the process down. I would also point out that this town is blessed with the largest conservation department in the state. Like I said, not only were we the first, but we're currently the biggest, or slightly above Greenwich in size. So I think and could confidently say that the department's efficiency, working with the same 10 people on both the commission and the agency, is very well a smooth operation. And I think that the department and the commission work very well together and support each other in both directions. So I don't see that processing any types of statutory applications, since they're bound by statutory timelines anyway on the wetland side, that there's any delays or deficiencies by having the same people serving on both boards.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Okay.
Hey, Tim.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Hey, it's Brian McCann. How you doing?
Hey, Brian. How are you?
Good. I won't take offense to that comment about your commission being better than it was 3 years ago, but
You were on it 3 years ago.
What I was going to say, as far as Eric's comment about efficiency, is that if you have, you currently have an inland wetlands commission that's, say, reviewing an application, and it may be advantageous or apt to have to request a conservation easement, or maybe one is being offered. Well, if the same body serves as the Conservation Commission, as does the Inland Wetland Agency, I think there's sort of a hand-in-glove situation there that would also lead to efficiencies in terms of planning of open spaces and easements, et cetera, because you have that, that dual hat sort of commission. Just my personal opinion.
Yeah, that's a good point. It also points to another advantage is, in several cases, whether the matter is pressing or not, both meetings, while separate, the agency meets the first Wednesday of the month and the commission meets the third Wednesday of the month. In some cases, when the matter was urgent or for some other reason, they have held both meetings in one night, so they could adjourn one meeting and switch hats and put their bang the gavel as another board. So again, I think that's an advantage, where instead of having 10 new people show up, so just wanted to point that out to support Brian's comments.
Yeah, the synergies between those two operations are critical. And you know, if it were two different commissions, it would seem to me like the Inland Wetlands has got to watch the Conservation Commission, and the Conservation Commission's got to watch the Inland Wetlands. So, and then you know, we brought up, because you know this is a problem in a lot of commissions in town, is getting more people. So Commissioner Treshik said, so if we break this up, what are we going to need? 7 more people? You know, get 7 more people that we don't have right now. You know, so appreciate your comments. I think that for me that put a bow around this for me. So I appreciate your time.
Great. Happy to help on that. And I did want to point out, well, it sounds like it's resolved. I did watch for the record, watch the meeting, the last meeting when this was discussed. And I did want to point out that while the state statutes require that one inland wetland agency member go through the Connecticut DEEP training.
Oh yeah.
I do want to point out that all 10 of our members have gone through that and passed. It's something that when I started, and there was anytime there was turnover for an expired seat or a resignation, the day after they were sworn in, it's been a point of mine to pass that link on and guidance for taking that course, and that's been done by everyone since I started. So we have 10 full members. Well, I should say 7 full members and 3 alternate members that have all taken the state course. So that's not even an issue.
Yeah, thank you for that. I know that was you know, there was some debate if you watched it about, you know, codifying that in the charter, which I was not a big fan of, but it sounds like we have a bunch of really dedicated people that want good training and are taking advantage of it. So awesome.
And they do go for other courses beyond that, with similar organizations, including Connecticut Bar Association events for land use training, which several, probably half of our board or more have completed as well. So it's not just the deep training. We do have encourage and work with commissioners that do go through other external training programs.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Blanco, Commissioner McCann, sorry, any further comments?
No, I don't have any, Chair.
Just to tag on what Tim said, in Fairfield, just so everyone knows, we're also just blessed to have an incredible wealth of knowledge on those 2 commissions. I mean, we have a soil scientist, a wetland biologist, a land use attorney. It's an incredible wealth of experience and information that are on those commissions. So, you know, while the training is certainly important, you know, there really is no substitute for degrees in that area either. So we're really blessed as a community to have them, and also to have an amazing staff. And I'm trying to figure out in my head, town, I think it's New Milford. I can't remember where Tim is from, but vice chair with that level of experience, that's it might be a community that even has more experience. But anyway, it's really incredible, the experience and the dedication that they have on that commission and on the staff level.
Great.
Chair, just a question.
Yes, Mr. Truscott.
I think it'll be important at the conclusion of this process to also communicate to the town what we considered and rejected. And I think we're rejecting this. We need a sense of the body vote to kind of say that we rejected something, or we just kind of all agree that, hey, we don't want to move forward with recommending splitting these commissions.
I think that's a really good idea. So I'll make a sense of the body that we don't make any changes as per the recommendations on the inland wetlands, under the Conservation Commission part of the charter.
With the exception of how they're appointed.
Which is covered in another sensory body. Okay. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay. Any further comments? Testimony? Okay.
No.
All in favor of taking no action, say aye.
Aye.
I
I'm good at doing nothing. Excellent, thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Have a good
Okay,
night.
thanks a lot,
Thank you.
Tim. Agenda item 8, discussion related to town planning and zoning. Mr. Wendt, how are you, sir?
I'm well, thank you. My name is Jim Wendt, for those of you that don't know me. I'm the planning director for the town of Fairfield.
Eric Treshik, good meeting.
And I will preface, and thank you for the invitation.
Yes, please.
Mr. Chairman.
Do we have, so I see Kathy, who I don't know last name, but is that one of your commissioners?
She is.
Okay,
Thank you for the invitation. For many of the same reasons I just heard outlined by my colleague and friend, Mr. Bishop, I also think there's an advantage in maintaining the status quo with respect to the Planning and Zoning Commission being a combined commission. I do have a statement. I can leave a copy of it with you. I'll just go through it really
Sure.
quickly. There's two fundamental roles that this commission shares, planning and zoning, and the two are interrelated, much like the Conservation Commission and Inland Wetlands Commission. There's value in having that symbiotic relationship embodied within the same group. But technically, the authority for a municipality to establish a zoning commission is found in Section 8.1 of the Connecticut General Statutes, and the authority to establish a planning commission is in Section 8-18. Now, as you likely know, Section 8.5 of our Fairfield Town Charter confers the powers of both of those aforementioned statutes into a combined planning and zoning commission. The main authority for planning commission is to adopt a plan of conservation and development for a community and to prescribe subdivision regulations to control the subdivision of land. The plan of conservation and development, or POCD, is a policy document that outlines the aspirational goals for the future land use and overall development of the town, but it's an advisory document that does not have any regulatory authority. The function of the zoning commission is to enact and amend zoning regulations, establish zoning districts and procedures for their amendment, and act on applications for special permit for development applications and other zoning-related activities. So while the POCD defines the priorities and goals, the implementation of those goals relies on the regulatory framework that's found in the zoning regulations and zoning map. That is why the majority of municipalities in the state have combined planning and zoning commissions, so they vest that authority for both adopting and implementing the plan in the same commission. A separate planning commission with the responsible to adopt the plan would have no authority to implement any of its recommendations. So the recent trend has been for communities that have had separate commissions to actually combine them rather than the other way around.
the other way around, exactly, yeah.
So a lot of the same advantages that you heard in the previous discussion, I think, would apply here. There seems to be, I did review the emails. There are several of them that kind of refer to this topic, and somehow I think with the idea that planning is somehow a back burner topic from the zoning issues that the commission was dealing with, but I don't think that's an accurate statement. The commission has been actively engaged in updating the POCD since 2018. Within that time frame, there was a transit-oriented development study adopted by both the Economic Development Commission and the TPZ in 2019. Many of those recommendations carried forward into the draft POCD, which was first released in July of 2023. The TPZ has subsequently released 2 amended drafts in February and August of 2024. And during that time, we've received a fair amount of pushback saying, hey, why are we pushing to do a POCD and adopt it before its expiration in 2026?
Why rush this?
Right, so that's not a symptom to me of back burner planning. We're getting pushback, hey, why are you moving so fast?
It's exact opposite, exactly.
Yeah, it might be. So,
Yeah.
in my professional opinion, and it aligns with Tim's, and I think separating the commissions would be a step backward and could in fact lead to separate commissions that may not have aligned goals. So I think the commission that's charged with creating the plan should also be vested with its implementation rather than separating those two. And that's why most communities in the state have combined commissions. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, but I did share this statement with our commission chair, Tom Noonan. He's aligned with this statement.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Commissioner Kathy.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Would
I'm
you
in my
like to
car. Yeah.
make any comments on behalf of not on behalf of the commission, but as a commission member?
Sure. Thank you so much. I heard everything that Jim said, and I actually agree with him because now that the surge of 8-30Gs, which really affected us greatly, it made it very difficult to do anything because we're still meeting every week to deal with that. But we're about to get a moratorium, so I think that's going to be letting up. And I think my commission is now taking more advantage of our statutory timeframes on some of these new applications. So it was really kind of a logistics nightmare, having so much work and working on the POCD at the same time. So I was thinking, yeah, maybe they should be split up. But I was kind of on the fence. And it's good to hear what Jim had to say and also what Tim Bishop had to say, because they brought, institutional knowledge of how things work, to the forefront. I only see it as a commissioner. I don't see what goes on the back end. So I appreciate what both of them said, and I agree with them now. So I'm going to evolve my opinion that I think perhaps they should stay the same, both commissions. But I don't know. I didn't hear the part of the conversation about how the appointments would be made. I do feel that conservation should be elected. That's just my opinion. So I don't know what your decision was about appointments throughout town. I hadn't heard that. I feel like everything should be elected. That's pretty much all I have to say about that. Thanks.
So this is a town
Planning and Zoning Commission is elected.
is elected,
Yeah.
right,
Yep.
right. We have not made,
Yeah.
No, conservation's appointed by first. select.
conservation is appointed, that's right, yeah. We made a generic sense of the body that it was, I'm trying
Well,
to
one,
remember.
we changed that from the first select person to the board of
Oh,
select
that's right.
persons.
Yes.
And then also that, like most other appointed positions, they should be confirmed by the RTM.
Right. So there
I
was
think
only,
that's great. Yeah, that's good.
there was only one commission, and that was the Conservation Commission. That was a Board of Selectmen, a first selectman only. So we've scratched that line from the charter, and we said every board and commission is going to be, it's not only going to be a Board of Selectmen decision, then we added the language that said the RTM, right? Thank you.
I think that's a good compromise. Yeah, I think that's great. I support
think-
that. That's fantastic.
Yeah. I don't think it's a compromise at all, actually. I think it's a great addition.
Halfway between first selectman and having it elected.
Yeah, I
think
guess
it's fine.
that's a
Yeah,
good way to put it, as compromise, right? So,
Great.
commissioners, I'll open it up for any discussion.
Just a comment and then maybe a couple of questions. So FYI, you just arrived today, so it's not been posted. but,
Yeah, I was going to bring up the,
Commissioner Harrison?
yes,
She spoke in support of leaving it as it is.
Right.
As the commissions are structured today combined.
right.
And spoke to the workload with 830G and such, but, and that's actually what a couple questions, Mr. Went, that I wanted to ask about. So, what is the term, I guess, of a POCD?
10 years.
10 years. Got it. Oh, so then the last one was approved in 2016?
2016,
And then you started working on it again in 2017?
It was, and mainly because the 2017 update of the POCD was not a comprehensive rewrite. The last real comprehensive rewrite of the POCD took place in 2000, was the 2000 POCD.
Okay.
In 2016, MetroCog, or what was formerly known as the Greater Bridgeport Regional Planning Agency, updated their regional plan. And in so doing, there was new, fresh census data and other statistical data that's really in the front part of that plan. So to take advantage of both the availability of that updated regional plan, the 2016 plan kind of brought in some of that material, the refreshed statistical data, and also adopted brought in a separate Commerce Drive plan that the commission had done prior to that to kind of fold into the 2000 plan. So it was technically an update that meets the statutory 10-year timeframe to update the POCD, but it wouldn't, in my opinion, be a comprehensive rewrite. So shortly thereafter, the chair said, hey, we should, now that we've reset the clock, so to speak, we should take a bigger picture look and start the process. So which we've been undertaking. We would have been finished before now, but we kind of got waylaid by the pandemic that, shortly after our big public engagement sessions, it just kind of put a halt to that. So we're now catching up. So yes, I agree. I think the workload that the commission is faced with now because of the rush to beat the moratorium clock, I think that's an anomaly. That's not the norm. Right. We'll work our way through that in due course, but I don't think the fact that they're bogged down with that burden, I think that's a short-term thing and shouldn't really impact a longer-term document that you folks are working on.
So there's a statutory requirement to update the POCD every 10 years?
There is. If it doesn't, you don't have to completely rewrite it. You can adopt the same plan and say, hey, but what the state requires is to be eligible for discretionary funding. You need to be on file with the Office of OPM, Office of Planning and Management and Budget, that you've at least adopted it at least once every 10 years.
And then it's approved by?
It's approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. They are the sole adopting authority.
Okay. And then maybe it's an unfair question, but I was curious on the workload with 830G. In theory, we're getting a moratorium soon, I understand. How long does the moratorium last?
Moratorium is 4 years initially. However, we think there's enough activity in the pipeline. In order to qualify for a moratorium, you need to earn a requisite number of what's called housing unit equivalency points. You actually bring units online, you get credit for that. There's enough development in the pipeline that should a moratorium take place, that in the intervening 4 years, if those other projects implement, that we should be able to earn enough credit points for a subsequent moratorium, and the subsequent moratorium is 5 years. So we're hopeful that can be parlayed into a 9-year pause rather than just a 4-year pause. But the initial moratorium is for 4 years.
Okay, thank you. I was just trying to understand if this is really.
The problem that's been.
It's all going to be.
It's just gonna, if it was a year, it wouldn't really make too much,
Well, 4 years still, it's
still a blink of an eye, right?
It's like that. I mean, if you've got kids that went through high school or college, you know how fast that 4 years.
Yeah, that's for sure, yeah.
But the problem or the workload that we're faced with is because the way the statute sets up the process to be qualified for a moratorium is you basically have to shout from the rooftops that you're applying for a moratorium. It gets published in the Connecticut Law Journal. It's got to get published and advertised. So it's like, hey, come one, come all, we're applying for a moratorium. Therefore, it's created this land rush of applications of folks that may have been on the fence thinking about it. Well, geez, I don't want to wait 4 years.
Get in before
I got to jam something in
right?
now. And so it's created this really unfair backlog of applications that we're struggling to work through.
Yeah,
Thank you. I didn't realize that.
yeah. That's a very good point. Commissioner Blanco, Commissioner McCann, any comments, thoughts?
No, I just go back to what we originally said, Chair. If it's not broke, don't fix it, right? It seems that this process has gone well. I thank the commissioners for coming in and for their service to the town. I really appreciate what they do. And my only observation is it seems to be working. So
I think that's an accurate assessment. Commissioner McCann, anything?
No, I don't. I agree that they should be kept joined. I think one other example to further Jim's point is like if you make a zoning amendment application, one of the things that you attempt to prove or provide is that your amendment is consistent with the POCD. So I think there are synergies if the same board is deciding the zone change application that implemented the POCD, the plan. So I would be in favor of keeping them together or as is.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Treshik already brought up, we did receive comment, which will be on our website tomorrow from Commissioner Harrison, who did come to the conclusion that separating them just wouldn't make a lot of sense. I think she even elaborated in there, we're in this bubble now of a lot of planning work or a lot of zoning work, but not a lot of planning, or vice versa, right? But, I had occasion to speak to Commissioner Braun a couple days ago, Kathy Braun, and she was the one that initiated this, as we talked about, right?
Sorry, guys.
And she's the one that started this whole thing, and now she's changed her mind, which again, this is part of the reason.
That's what happens when you go through a process.
That's right. So that's the reason we're doing this, right? We're doing this so we can have an open discussion and make sure that we get consensus. So,
Well, I mean, to be fair to Ms. Braun, she's not the only one who suggested it.
no, that's right.
There are other electeds who
There were a
tried
couple
to,
other. Yes, that's a good point.
around-
She's here and we can tease her.
and that's-
Yeah, that's the whole reason behind that. Exactly.
That's okay.
So, in just mentioning service to the town, Mr. Wen, what is your service to our town? How many years?
38 and a half years.
38 and a half years, and I understand you may be on
I
the,
will be stepping away at the end of this month, yes, sir.
wow.
Wow.
So congratulations on that, and
Thank you so much for your service.
your service to the town is, I don't think there's anybody in town that doesn't know Jim Wen, so good, bad, or indifferent.
It's
But,
it's been a heck of a ride, and I've enjoyed the honor of being of service to this community. It's a great town.
We really appreciate all your time and service, believe me. So I will make a sense of the body motion that we take no action on the separation of town zoning and planning separation.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Blanco. Any further discussion?
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Prue, we are now at 4-0-0. Commissioner McInerney had to leave us. All right, thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity. I did have copies of my statement, but having heard your sense of the body motion, I don't feel the need to leave it with you at this point, but if you.
You know what? I'll take a copy if you don't mind.
Then Mr. Wen, I would just say, you may want to read on the public input on the website, there was a comment from Mr. Jacobs back in November regarding sidewalk fees and developers.
Yes, yeah, a couple things. I did see that, and I will tell you that I don't disagree with Mr. Jacobs' comments. However, that has to be authorized by statute. It's not, we can't create a fee in lieu unless it's specifically authorized. That
By
bill.
RTM?
No, by the state
state.
legislature.
Oh, state.
That bill has been up a couple times in the state legislature and has yet to pass. So while I do agree with his idea, we can't unilaterally do that locally. That has to be imposed by the state.
Excellent. All right, wonderful.
Thank you. And I
Thank you, Commissioner
appreciate
Braun.
the level of detail you guys are going in this Herculean task that you guys have on your hands, so.
Appreciate it. We're getting near the end, thanks to you. Thanks a lot, Kathy.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to agenda item 9, discussion of related to Board of Ed minority representation. This was another recommendation by the first selectman. It's a little tough to explain, but I'll try my best. So let's talk about Board of Finance, for example. Because the Board of Finance terms have not changed over the years, it is possible for a 6-3 majority to be on the Board of Finance. That is the most majority you can have. Because of the term change, and I think in the 2006 charter, it becomes mathematically impossible, except for a split term, to have a 6-3 majority on the Board of Education. So Mr. Gerber's recommendation was, why can't we change the charter to make the Board of Education minority representation be the same as the Board of Finance? Now, the 2022 commission did make a recommendation. There's a lot of words and a lot of moving parts, like how many people get to run in 2027 and 2028 and this and that. And what I had attempted to do was send all that data, starting with the first selectman's recommendation, what is in the current charter, and then the 22 recommendation to our Republican Town Committee chairman, which is Ms. Laura Devlin, and our Democrat Town Committee chairman, who is Mr. Scheinberg. Mr. Scheinberg was not available tonight. He did give me a written statement, and which I will read on his behalf. But let me please introduce Ms. Devlin and ask her for her opinion. And if you're speaking, Laura, you're on mute. There she is. You're still on mute. There you go.
All right. So thank you, and thanks for the opportunity to weigh in on this proposal. I appreciate you sending me, which actually I think was in the document that you had forwarded.
I hope it made sense, Laura.
That included the recommendations from the prior commission.
Yeah.
And so despite all of that, on behalf of the Republican Town Committee, we do not support making this change. And there's several reasons why that is the case.
Okay.
So, let me outline those for you. And there's
Please.
four primary reasons. And one of them, and you started your comments by talking about, the Board of Finance and the Board of Education, and the Board of Finance works this way, the Board of Education doesn't. And that really is by design. Boards of education are unique, and they should not be treated the same way as other municipal boards, because unlike other boards where, education, it focuses on student outcomes, it focuses on community needs, not partisan agendas. And Connecticut is unusual. We're in a minority of states that do have political education boards, but the priority really needs to remain on educational issues and not creating a system that favors one party over the other. There's also a state level precedent. So year after year in the P&D committee in Hartford, the legislature has considered changing minority representation rules and have consistently refrained from doing so, by and large, because of how it would affect boards of education, creating a partisan majority versus a minority. And, minorities and majorities change all the time. So, balance is really important. And the current structure really aligns with Connecticut's tradition of safeguarding that minority representation on Board of Education that will ensure no single party can dominate. So it really does choose inclusivity over majority dominance, such as having one party have a 6-3, shift, if you will, over what we currently have. And really, we view it as an unnecessary change. The current rules prevent one party from holding an outsized majority, and there's no governance issue that has been raised or that we've been confronting that would warrant such a change. So for those reasons, the Republican Town Committee recommends that we stay with the current structure of minority representation on the boards of education.
Thank you, Ms. Devlin. Appreciate your opinion, and appreciate the research that has gone into that response, not only at the Fairfield level, but at the state level, which you're very familiar. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, we took your ask very seriously and didn't just assume because the last charter revision committee suggested that this would be a good thing to do. We
Yep.
felt it was important to do our due diligence and really think about, the primary goal here is education excellence, focusing on our students, focusing on outcomes, being able to deliver that world-class education that we expect our residents in Fairfield expect. So
Yeah.
happy to provide this input.
That's very much appreciated by this commission because we decided very early to not just adopt everything that was done in 2022. And if one person brings up a topic, we're going to address it. And I agree with you. There's no governance issue that I can see that would drive this. And we've been operating, and everyone will tell you, listen to more than one meetings. My basic theory here is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This ain't broke. I agree with you. So,
yeah.
So just so to give equal representation, let me read verbatim the recommendation from Mr. Scheinberg. Good evening, Chris. This is Steve Scheinberg, Chair of the Fairfield Democratic Town Committee. I'm sorry I can't be at this meeting live. Thank you to the members of the CRC and especially the Chair, Chris DeWitt, for your service to the town of Fairfield. As Chair of the Fairfield DTC and as a citizen, I support the charter change to allow the Board of Education to have a path to a 6-3 majority by one party or the other. This change is allowed by state statute. It will still allow for minority representation with the possibility of a 3-member minority instead of 4. The Board of Finance currently has this path to 6-3 majority. Lastly, it will give the people the additional choice and leave the control and the majority up to them. Let the people decide. Thank you, Steve Scheinberg, Chairman, Fairfield DTC. So, having heard that and having heard Ms. Devlin's comments, are there any questions by the commissioners? Commissioner Blanco, Commissioner McCann?
It's not a question, it's more of a comment. I know we've in the end focused the conversation primarily on the outcome, or potential outcome, I should say, of a 6-3 majority. One of the major reasons why we are reviewing this is because this was requested by the first selectman list of potential changes that was approved by the Board of Selectmen. And he specifically calls out, consider changing the minority representation requirements that currently cause races to be uncompetitive in an election year where 4 candidates are to be elected. So I guess the point there and the potential benefit that hasn't been discussed is really around from a voter choice perspective in the off year when currently the way it is, up to 4, I guess, can be nominated and from each party, but only 2 can be elected in theory. And so the argument is the elections may be considered uncompetitive. So I think it's just important to bring that point up.
Yep.
As the
I struggle with
genesis of the question.
So
as opposed to the end result only.
No, I appreciate that, and maybe it's worth bringing up the actual comment because that is I've put this into a minority box where it was called Board of Education minority representation, but you're right, there are other. So let's see the actual recommendation just for. Let's see, I think it's there it is right there. It's number 7. Just so everyone can take a look at exactly. So, so Ms. Devlin, just so we're clear, if you haven't been following the process, we are addressing any taxpayer comment that comes in, right? But we are obligated to address every comment made by the first selectman and the town clerk as their inputs. So, not that we wouldn't have taken this up if a taxpayer brought it up, but just so you understand, one of the reasons that we're taking this up is because it was a very specific recommendation by the first selectman.
You made that clear in your letter. Yep.
So that's that. I don't understand, and it's too bad the first selectman's not here. I don't understand the comment that it makes races to be uncompetitive, because you have 4 people running and 2 can be voted in. The 2 can still be voted in. I mean, the fact that 3 can't be voted in, is that what he means is uncompetitive? That doesn't make it doesn't compute with me, so.
I don't know that it's unnecessarily uncompetitive is the right word choice potentially.
Yeah, well, that's his, just right, yeah, right,
I
yeah.
think it's fair. I think it's probably more of the argument, I am making an assumption here, that it is more around, it potentially encourages more moderate candidates. Because if you, in theory, if each party nominates 4 extreme candidates, then you're going to get 2 extremes from each. You know, the argument there, and that they're more likely to potentially get maybe the crossover votes or get enough of a vote share to drive if there's more moderate candidates.
Yeah,
I think that would be where I would go, as opposed to necessarily the uncompetitive aspect of it.
Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
Comment?
I think Ms. Devlin would agree, if we all ran 4 people, that we would be, as parties, we would have a party when we have that many people running, right?
And I mean, it does go back to, at the end of the day, the Board of Education, and by having a board that maybe is 5-4 versus 6-3, it does create more balance. It does create more discussion, more, compromise. And listen, having served in the legislature where I was in what I would call a large minority, if you get what I mean, but also in the historic time in our state when there was balance in the legislature, that is when the best work for the citizens of our state, and I think in this case for the students and the parents of our town, actually happens. Balance is more important than anything to good outcomes.
Yeah, right. Commissioner Blanco.
I would just put it through the chair DeWitt Strainer. Is it broken?
It ain't broken. That's just 1/7 of the opinion, but I don't think it's broken.
I think I'm with you, Chair. I don't think if it's not broken, look, just always go back to our mandate on the charter, right? We looking at the inputs, reviewing the inputs, and then it's a tough one, Chair, for sure, right?
Yeah. And it's very hard to follow. The remedy to this is really hard to follow. Like in the 2022 recommendation, in election 2025, because this would have been passed in 23, I think, right? There would have had to been X number of people running, and then in the next election, 2 years later, it would have been a different number. So the solution to this, as far as I could calculate, was at least 4 or maybe 6 years out. I couldn't quite get through the math. But
it might in and of itself be its own question, Chair.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that's true. I think though that would be, if any change were made, let's say we did in the past discussion, say we wanted to split TPC, or conservation, we would have had to do the same thing.
Right.
So that's not unique to the Board of Ed discussion.
It's just take no action.
We would have to lay out a very specific way to migrate to a new commission structure.
Right.
Regardless if.
That's right. It would not have been a unique situation. Yeah. No, that is actually correct.
Right. No, but to Vice Chair's point, you are making a structural change, though. The outcome would be structural.
Yeah. I would call this a structural change, yes. So,
yeah.
Well, let me just put this on the table for final discussion. I make a sensitive body motion that we take no action on number 7, the first selectman's number 7 recommendation.
Second.
I have a second. Is there any further comments or any further discussion on this topic?
I have a question. So I'm leaning a certain way, but since we have 4, right?
We do have 4.
If if it goes 3-1, it's still just no action. It's kind of almost irrelevant, right? As far as,
You mean because there's only 4 members here rather than 7?
well, I'm just thinking,
It's a quorum.
I'm in my mind, I'm still like, maybe, I might support this, but I'm clearly outnumbered, which is fine. So I'm just trying, it doesn't really matter though, in the end, from a voting perspective, because we're really debating the sense to take no action. at this point.
Yes, right.
Right, okay. Okay. Yeah, just trying
You
to.
know, sensitive bodies, so it's funny because the way I think sensitive bodies normally act in boards, right, is I'm just trying to get everybody's gut check, kind of feel everybody's pulse. This is a little more, I mean, the way I'm using it is a little more of a formal action to document a process. Because again, the last Charter Commission didn't do this, and having watched some of the final meetings, and they're like, wait a minute, did we say that or not? I did not want to be in that situation. Yes, Commissioner Blanco.
I just, Vice Chair, I hear your point. I think this number 7 in and of itself is its own referendum question, right? That's just, I mean, I'm not an attorney, no Brian's on, but it just feels like that should be its own question that should be certainly more, if you wanted to have more discussion, be greater input. I just go back to the not fix it. That's my point. Relative to the importance, I don't know, Brian, if you have a comment on that, think about anything different than I am.
I don't think it has to be. I mean, I think that I mean, it could be, but
okay.
I mean, I think Ms. Devlin's explanation and substantiation was just really well.
I agree.
Yeah.
And quite relatively uncontroversial. Well, I mean, I realize there's at least one person that thinks it's controversial, but I guess I don't agree.
Yeah. So the only other thing, and again, I'm sounding like a broken record on a lot of this stuff, but one of our goals is to make sure we have present a charter that will pass referendum. And I've said this multiple times. Shelton has had 5 charter revisions turned down. And the last charter revision that they voted on in 2024, I guess it was, right? Had one question on it, and it was this question: minority representation on the Board of Education, and it got turned down. One question, and everybody said no. Well, not everybody, but the majority of people said no. So would seem to me someone else there's at least some in another community, maybe not a great match to our community, but there are some people that do align certainly with Ms. Devlin's thoughts and comments.
Yeah, the only thing I'm just kind of thinking through is it's not as maybe strong of a through line as if it ain't broke, don't fix it, that we've been talking. But I also feel like we've had a bit of a through line around where possible, like give the voters a bit of more of a voice, either through directly or through more to the RTM, if possible. Yeah. And so that's the one piece in my mind, the reason why I would just consider it around just, it's a way to, once again, give voters more choice in an area where they care. And I just say that because like constables, I'm sure do a great job, but like constables is a perfect example where I don't think the voters care. As a counter type of example, whereas Board of Ed, I think the voters actually care about that. So that's just one thing I'm kind of thinking through in my mind, why it's really the only reason why I would want to support it.
I mean,
it's just more around
I understand
voter choice.
I understand your comments. I mean, I served on the Board of Finance for 16 years, and there was a 2-year, I think it was only a 2-year period where we had a 6-3 majority. And to Ms. Devlin's point, it's overwhelming. I mean, it's, and I thought we had a good board in that, it didn't come across that way. But anything to, I guess what I want to say is anything that would promote the 6-3 is I kind of agree with Ms. Devlin. 5-4 is perfect. I kind of like that 5-4. It's more of a mixed bag. The Board of Education, I really like the fact that even though they're in the minority, they elected a Republican chairman. You know, it's a Democratic majority board, but yet Jeff Peterson is their chairman. So it clear in Ms. Devlin, comment if you don't agree, but seems like they don't really care that much about parties, right, at their leadership level, right?
It is a very collaborative board. In fact, they are presenting right now in front of the board of.
They are, yes, they're right.
Watched many of their meetings. And, you know, being on the Board of Education, no offense to the Board of Finance, but I think the load that those representatives or those board members hold is probably the heaviest or in the top 2 of any board in our town. And it's a huge commitment to be a part of that. And they do work together, don't always agree, and then agree to disagree. So collaboratively.
Well, I'll agree to disagree with the workload on the Board of Finance, but that's just, that's okay. We can get past that. Yeah. So there's a sensitive body on the floor and a second. Is there any further discussion before we vote? Okay. All in favor of taking no action on Selectmen's number 7 recommendation regarding minority representation to Board of Education, say aye.
Aye.
Prue, that is a 4-0-0. Take no action. Ms. Devlin, thank you very much for your time in reviewing, your preparation time, and your time here tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to share our thoughts.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Have
All
a
right.
nice evening.
Okay.
Being super productive tonight.
I was going to say 8 o'clock, boys, and we're on discussion of next meeting topics. But I think, no, we're not. We're on number 10, which is discussion of overall CRC topics. So what this was meant to be was Commissioner Treshik does a great job of keeping us aligned. And I think there were a couple little sweep up things that we thought we would add to the agenda if we had time, which I feel like we do. So I'll hand it over to you if you'd, I'm
Sure.
sharing your screen, so.
Right. And what may be easiest is if you were to filter on column G, discussed, and then deselect. Yeah, you just click on that.
It's not letting me do anything.
I always hit comment only? Is that why? You open it up as, oh, shoot.
I'm in comment only. Can I change that? Request edit access.
Okay. Then,
What will happen if I request it? Will it send you a message?
yeah, and I probably will get it right here then. Probably be easier than resharing. And I just got the request and. Okay.
Gentlemen, I just want to thank you again
Sure.
on the Zoom.
Yeah, so, yes, I
Of
just.
course.
Thank you for being
Should.
here. Let's see here.
Of course, Chair. Sure. No problem.
I just granted it.
Do I have to log out of it, you think? I think so.
Reload, you have access is and reload it now, then it should be, so now you have
Look at that.
access. So now you go to G, yep. So G, and then if you, yeah, right there. And then you
Blank?
deselect yes.
Got it.
And then hit down at the bottom right there, the okay, yeah. Yeah, okay. So now, these are the ones that we have not yet discussed. And so WPCA, that's next meeting.
So next meeting is WPCA for sure, right?
Right, we've just discussed zoning today,
Right.
and then,
We talked about this one too.
yep. This is a new, this was a new recommendation that came in, you know, Personally, I think it adds a lot of work. We're not going to do.
Add references to
Well-
relevant code. Oh. town-
Asking us to
state statute.
add, yeah, exactly, asking us to add relevant, both, I think, local ordinance, but also RTM, or sorry, like CGS references to the charter. To me, it goes in the opposite direction of what we've been talking about, which
Right.
is simplification of the
Yeah.
charter.
Well, my thought is if we're gonna add state statutes, then we should be deleting something. You know? A reference to a state statute should not then come with 3 pages of explanation. It should be, I'm gonna point to the state statute and then have a nice day, so.
So that's in, I mean, we can kind of just decide.
I say well, it's up to any commissioners, you have any thoughts about that? I think there are certainly references to the state statutes in the current document where applicable.
Right.
I think in our review, if, after we get the red line, if we see any missing holes that we could fill those in, but I think to do this as one to everywhere, I think is a little too much.
I would agree, like, as we are making changes, if it's relevant, we should do it.
Yep, agree.
But otherwise, no.
I agree with you.
We can defer to the red line process, maybe is good.
Yep. So then the next is this was a relatively new one.
Yeah.
Specifically, this elector was concerned that select person Kupchik was blocking various people from, I don't know if it was her personal account that she uses for talk about the town or a town account. I'm not entirely clear.
Yeah, I think what this person was referencing was when select person Kupchik was first select person, she had a weekly newsletter, as does Mr. Gerber. And there was a distribution sheet associated with that. And after she left office, she continued to use that distribution sheet, which I think is totally fine. But she, at least if from this person is alleging that she took people off of that distribution. And this person said, why can they block it? I guess my point is, I could block anyone I want on Facebook too, if you want. Now, as an elector, or sorry, as an elected official, is there anything that, keeps you from, limiting distribution of materials? I think if it's a non-official function, I don't think there's anything to do here.
Around social, but I mean, I don't think we should get into this in the charter.
I agree, right.
But I think this is, yeah.
So I'll make a sensitive body that we take no action on this particular topic, discussing town officials censor or blocking electors.
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Great. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you. Oversight on pension boards.
Yes, Mr. Brown, in one of his inputs, made a suggested change around that. That was back in January.
Let me take a look at this, because I
thought this actually sounded.
I was just going to say the same thing and I stopped myself. 18th, is it the 15th?
Did I get it wrong?
State law. I don't think that's the one. You did say January 18th,
Did I
right?
get the wrong? I put the 13th. Oh, shoot, did I get the wrong?
That's okay.
There are so many emails.
There's a couple that go through. Let's figure it's around the 8th. Let's figure it's in maybe it was January 8th. How's that? This is Let's see what January 8th.
Well, actually, what was it? No, I mean, he does talk to increase the oversight, but I think that's,
What
actually,
day
so
was
on the
it?
third, so on the 13th, and it's, I think I think there's a different email on a different topic that I'm really thinking about, but on the 13th of January, this really gets back to eliminating the Board of Finance. But he also says that even if you keep the Board of Finance, believes there's an opportunity that the current town elected officials, representative government, control over various appointed pension and pension investment boards should be increased. That's the kind of the closing. Yeah, the very last
Yeah.
paragraph there. And I mean, you have much more experience than I do, Chris, in this area. I don't know what level of oversight there is right now of the pension and pension investment boards.
So the pension and investment boards report out quarterly to the Board of Finance. They are subject to all the, trying to think of the Brian probably knows off the head, state requirements for reporting. The pension board, I know, has actually gone from an entity that would kind of make recommendations on their own to hiring a consulting body that handles all that work. So to say that there's no oversight I don't think he's saying there's no oversight. I think there's quite a bit of oversight. I mean,
Is there any oversight by the first selectman's and his kind of team or the RTM?
I think that body, I don't know if that body reports out quarterly to the RTM. But I will say this, I don't think the pension board is listed in the
No, that's a good point.
in the charter. I think the pension board is mentioned in the code, but I could be wrong.
So this might be a code thing.
I think that's right.
I mean, there's a police and fire retirement board, I guess, that's in the, and this one does require, I was looking at the police and fire retirement board, and they are required to
10-7.
report to the Board of Selectmen. Kind of like, just like normal pension funds would have to do.
I think that's literally from retiring from the, the board, what I think, the investment board is charged with making sound investments through known financial institutions to bolster and, keep control of the money that's in the fund. And I think it's the fund that not only is contributed to by the members, I think, the employees, I think it's also the town portion of it too. That I could be a little shaky on, but.
Okay.
I mean, I'm happy to leave it open if we need to get a little more data, but at this point, I'm willing to
You don't see it.
take no action. I don't think so. So I'll make a sense of the body to take no action on the topic called increased oversight on various pension boards by elected officials.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
That's 400, Prue. Official bonds.
Official bonds, I don't know if this is necessary because per Ms. Ewing, this section was left out of the 2022. It's unclear if that was intentional or not. But it's in the It's in the real charter.
It is in the real charter.
And so I don't know that there's really an action to take. And Mr. Gerber.
What does this add
just
reference?
said-
He doesn't say, consider if this section is necessary. I'm wondering if he, I
Well, so-
remember when Ms. Ewing brought this up, Commissioner Wackerman and I looked at each other in a little shock and horror that that particular thing would have been taken out of there, so.
So, I mean, so Mr. Gerber's put in a comment, and because he'd listened to the the meeting recording, and his point was the last Charter Revision Commission did intentionally take it out. He doesn't know why. But your point is that's important. You disagree with that.
I don't think it's hurting anything, let me put it that way, and I thought it had some relevance, current relevance, but.
Yeah. I don't have a strong opinion.
I'm happy to take this as an action to do a little more research on this before we completely, this is the official bond, yeah, I think I know where that section is.
The non-germane are non-germane. Like, do we want to deal with timing of traffic lights, dog parks?
No, thank you.
Great ideas, but not.
None of that stuff is in the charter.
830G, not in the charter, so.
Yep.
Constables, that was both in the intern benchmarking, so that's row 54. And there were changes to the selection
2022.
process in the 2022. I believe they moved to appointment, if I remember correctly, in the 2022.
And where did this comment come from? Internal benchmarking?
Well, it was, the interim benchmarking. And whether or not we should look at changing how they are selected.
So, let's see. So the charter, so just so we're all on the same page here. Constables. I know what's in here. I think I'd be able to find it though, wouldn't you?
And the interim benchmarking, it's kind of all over the map in a lot of ways. I mean, a bare majority have elected 6 out of 11. And then there's a number of there's different towns have different numbers of constables and such.
So these are elected officials, so that's why.
Yes, they are elected officials today.
I'm looking in the wrong spot probably.
Right.
So elected boards and commissions, so that would be 8-1.
There.
Oh, here they are.
And
7.2. 7.2, other elected officers, there shall be 7 constables and 45 justices of the peace elected or nominated in the manner prescribed in section 2.3, which is an election. Well, let's just go there. 2.3 says, section 2.3B, says there shall be 7 constables and they shall be elected at each town election and their term is for 2 years. So the 2022 recommendation was, and I quote, there shall be 4 constables appointed by the Board of Selectmen for staggered terms of 4 years. So they've doubled the term, but they've made them appointed. And then there's a whole transitional section on or about the first day of December. You're gonna appoint 2 more, and then after that, you appoint. So I don't know what the total, looks like there's only, they've reduced it to 4. From 7 to 4.
And made it appointed.
And made it appointed, yeah.
Right.
It ain't broke right now. Well, I want to be clear. I don't know if this is broke or not, right? I don't know if we're having trouble finding constables, or if we elect constables and they don't do their job, so, but I don't even know who to ask about this.
Yeah.
Elected stuff's tough, right? It's like saying, oh, the Board of Finance stinks. Well, they're elected. I mean,
They're not paid like a salary, are they?
the constable, no one
They're
gets
paid,
this.
it's like piecework, right?
Yeah.
Per hour, when you.
I think there is something, yeah, right.
Serve notices or something.
Yeah,
The only thought I had on this one is like, and I guess this is potentially going against what I said earlier, but this is one where like it's almost overwhelming for the public. I mean, like, could this be a way to actually simplify ballots for the public if you were to either lengthen the terms or reduce the number or some way? That's the only thing, because I know that kind of we're like, really?
Yeah.
Vote again?
yeah.
Every single time we're voting for all the constables?
Yeah, and I guess it could also be said that if it goes to an appointment process, then it becomes more of
Yeah, I'm
a
not arguing-
political.
Yeah, I'm not arguing for
Right, yeah.
appointment.
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
it's more
Yeah,
like,
yeah, right.
You go to like 4 years or something like that.
I guess, so,
I mean, to me, this is like, would it be high priority? No, but like maybe a little more research on this one.
I would be interested to know what the last commission, how they came from 7 to 4 members, and how they went from 2 to 4 years. I mean, I get it. If you're gonna make an appointment, it probably doesn't make sense to make a 2-year appointment. So I kind of understand that. How they went from 7 to 4, and I guess the other thing that is the justice of the peace. 45 justices of the peace. That's just doesn't.
So well, in the intern benchmarking, the number is addressed. So 4 out of the 11 towns surveyed have 7 constables, like we do. 2 have 3 constables.
Okay.
1 has 8.
Oh.
2 do not have a set number, but have a maximum number. Like Westport has a maximum of 7, and West Hartford has a maximum of 9.
So there's a difference between constables and special constables.
Of course there is.
Under the state election statute 9-200, each town shall elect at its regular municipal election no more than 7 constables, except the town of Groton, which may elect 14 constables.
Boy, there must be some stuff going on in Groton, huh?
There's some serious stuff going on in Groton. You don't even want to know about it.
Yeah, I guess not.
But there's another statutory section, chapter 95, which relates to special constables, and I think it sounds to me like that's maybe where the last Charter Revision Commission was going, because the special constables are appointed by the chief executive officer, necessary, anything he deems necessary to preserve public peace, or serve criminal process. The CEO may appoint special constables within the limited geographical jurisdiction who are appointed at the request of corporation, blah, 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 blah. Have jurisdiction only on land controlled by such corporation or business. I think that they may have gotten those two a little bit mixed up, but
Yeah. Does the state statute say you have to elect constables?
Constables, yes. As they're defined in 9-200, constables can only be
elected. Special constables may be appointed by the CEO, but this is elect and no more than, what did I say, 7.
Yeah.
And Brian, I think you said every election, right?
Shall elect at its regular municipal, yes, that's
And
correct.
that's what it says in the charter too. Every election, there's a constable on it.
So, I mean, we could go less, but I wouldn't want to say that we can appoint constables.
Yeah, I'm.
And you're reading of that, could you in theory do a 4-year term where you're electing 3 in one election and 4 in the next election and, kind of so on? Or is that not?
And you have to run every election.
Or you read that as every election, every constable has to be elected?
The candidates in each number is sufficient to fill the oath. The office who have the highest number of votes shall be. I don't think it speaks directly to that, Eric. Let me take a closer. Let me go 9-200. Let me get the other sections here. In 1 second.
Do you have the 2022 charter revision open in Word? Like, can you do a word search? Because I don't. Because I'm really curious about.
Derek, can I be? I'm going to come back in like 6 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
Thank.
Because I'm really curious about this 45 justices of the peace. It's our current. I'm curious what the 2022 commission, if they made any changes or even, because I can't. Where I would think I'd see it, it isn't there.
Got it.
Yeah, wait till you hear this one, Chris. The number of justices of the peace for each town shall be equal to 1/3 the number of jurors to which such town is by law entitled, except in the town of Waterbury, the number shall be 69.
1/3 of the jurors? Does that mean people who are eligible for jury duty?
1/3 the number of.
I love this.
I know if he's having trouble, an engineer certainly ain't gonna figure it out.
Yeah, well, I mean, this was last amended in probably, was it?
1789?
Yeah, 74, but. 2/3 of the total number of justices of the peace in each town shall be selected in accordance with the provisions of this section. Such percentage shall be rounded down to the nearest whole number. The political parties which are major parties as defined in subsection B. An equal number of the total number of justices of the peace to be selected in each town. I mean, I would just be too afraid. I mean, without looking at this in incredible detail, I would be concerned that we're just going to run afoul of the.
Yeah. Okay. Because the obvious the kind of obvious, I'll call it, reading would be that you can have up to 7. They need to be elected at each election.
For constables, that's my understanding too. Yeah.
Which is what we have today. So I would say we don't.
This is falling under the.
We don't do anything.
Again, I just never thought we had 45 justices of the peace.
Actually, no, it's on page 30, this is the 2022.
Yeah, page 32.
Page 32, section 5.2A, it establishes 45 justices of the peace. Same number.
Goodness. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so no change to constable. That's good. No, it was really helpful, Brian, because I've always wondered, why am I voting for constable so much?
Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to contradict myself for a little bit here. 9-185 says, unless otherwise provided by special act or charter, members of the BAA, selectmen, town clerks, town treasurers, collector of taxes, constables, registrars of voters, members of boards of education, library directors shall be elected.
So in theory, that implies that you could choose not to.
If you
Charter overrule the
if
state
you do it-
statute?
Only if you do it by charter.
Right. Okay.
which we're doing.
Personally unwilling to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's been no, like, a lot of people asking, the only.
Yeah, and
research
because we don't have a
is-
specific input, so I'm kind of, I think there's no action there.
So the next is around DPW project management team, like where does this team report? I don't think that's a charter issue.
Where does this new team report? Oh, this is the, yeah.
I mean, it's a fair question to ask, but not our problem.
Yeah, I mean, the program management, whatever it is, as far as I can tell, it is neither memorialized in the charter or the code. So it seems to me to fall under one of those, I can make up a board or commission as the first selectman if I feel it's necessary. So I don't see us needing to take any action on that.
Right, I agree. I think on the first selectman as a town officer, was that one of the ones we had to follow up on? Just because I don't know that we understand what that is.
This is internal benchmarking, right? Okay.
Yeah, yes.
We got through that one.
So the first selectman as a town officer was covered in the intern benchmarking. And I don't understand the issue here. And we haven't gotten any complaints about it. And yeah, so I'm not sure if there's a real problem
Yeah.
that we need to address.
Doesn't seem to be anything we need to address. If there's no specific taxpayer comment, I think we can move on.
Right. Term limits on town officers who are unelected.
What about town attorney duties? Did we,
Oh, sorry,
did we-
whoops, I
did we
missed that.
clear that? Make settlements of litigation, amend, so there's a specific recommendation by Mr.
This is the one I
This is
think
the
I
one
was
I
thinking
think-
about. That was, I think is a good recommendation.
Yeah, I think you're right. So if we amend, so 9.3, C4, today reads, under the direction of the Board of Selectmen, this is under the heading of town attorney, under the direction of the Board of Selectmen, appear for the town or any of its officers, boards, commissions, or authorities in any litigation or any other action brought by or against the town or any town officials. And Mr. Brown says to read, make settlements of litigation and claims as the Board of Selectmen direct after approval of the town. Okay. Make settlements of litigation and claims as the Board of Selectmen direct after approval by the town legislature.
Well, Board of Selectmen, I mean, I think the grammar's wrong. It should be board.
Well, it says right now, under the direction of the Board of Selectmen, right?
Right, but I think the idea there of essentially that the RTM and any regulatory agency would have to approve the settlement. That's what he's saying. The board just can't unilaterally make settlements, is the recommendation.
Oh, I get it. Okay.
Because it's, what is it?
So, yep, after approval, yep, I understand.
What is it again?
9.34.
C.
Kind of seems like an executive function, if you ask me.
Yeah, it's
And I also just know, just from working as a town attorney, that it usually is subject to the BOS. I mean, that's usually
I'm gonna hit the head myself. Excuse me, gentlemen, I'm just going to use the restroom myself. I'll be right back.
Yep.
So, but Brian, you're saying that usually it's under the board, or usually there's RTM input, or what are you saying?
No, it's usually the executive function. It's usually, you know, settlement of pending claims and lawsuits is usually the executive, the Board of Selectmen.
Got it. So,
I mean, the thing is, it's an executive function, don't you think? I mean, it's you know, they usually authorize the lawsuit in the first place if it's a prosecution of a lawsuit. If it's a defense of a lawsuit, there's really little choice. But they technically still do direct those as well, and then sort of any settlements are commonly taken to the boards of selectmen for a vote and decision. In the first instance, it's taken on an executive session level, because obviously you don't want to, strategically, you don't want to, you know, yes, we'll give so-and-so $3 million. You don't want to do that on the public, or, you know, they authorize the town attorney to settle a dispute within a certain range, and then and then when that's actually affected through a settlement agreement, that's approved by the Board of Selectmen.
got it. So you would leave as is?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I understand the impetus, which is like, you know, yet a little more taxpayer elector representation in the process, but like at the same time, you elect the executives too, right? I mean, we elect the first selectman.
Well, wouldn't, I'm guessing we don't have a budget line item for every year for lawsuit settlements. So if we agree to a settlement.
I don't know that that's necessarily true.
Okay, we probably do have some kind of.
I think most towns do have. I mean, they need to. I think, you know, they call them different things informally: slush funds, contingency funds.
Got it.
But no, I think they do, because I mean, think about like just generically think about like tax appeals. Like, you know, those sometimes result in pretty big financial credits or refunds.
Okay.
If I try a tax appeal and you know, and I'm successful and I get the town to reduce a tax assessment from $60 to $30 million, I mean, it's a sizable credit or refund. And
I want to come to your house with the $30 million tax bill. Just kidding. So we're just, does the, drawing on your experience, Chris, as the Board of Finance, is there a line item where there's normally like a settlement fund in a way where like we're just expecting we're going to have to pay certain things during the year?
There is a line, there's two line items. There's it's under the town attorney, or under the town attorney. And I think there's one that's disclosed and one that's kind of undisclosed amount of money.
Okay.
Talk about executive session. That's what, you know, we would have discussions. We would have discussions in executive session about, well, we
were just talking about that, Chris. Yeah.
So then if that's there, that kind of, so I guess in theory, if the board needed to approve a settlement that it would exceed either of those budgets, they'd have to like come to the RTM or the Board of Finance, right, to get the money.
Well, if they'd have to make, if they were forced to make some sort of special appropriation, then I would assume, yeah. I mean, if it's
yeah, I mean, if it's a $2 million settlement, yeah, I think you, like you said, that'd be a, you know, special appropriation, but.
Okay, because to me, if we're approving, we being the town through the budget making process are kind of setting aside money for settlements, they're kind of in a way designating authority to the board of selectmen to just handle that stuff. And then they're almost setting a limit on it because of the amount of the budget. And so.
Yeah, it depends where the money is. If the money is in the contingency fund, the only body that can move money out of the contingency fund is the Board of Finance. So, not that I'm saying we would take that funds out of there, but if there's a $500,000 contingency in the contingency fund this year, and something came up, and somebody said, I want $100,000 out of contingency, Board of Finance has to move it to that line item, whether it be town attorney or, Department of Public Works or something like that, and then they can spend it. But there is money that I think I don't know that there's any money like that can be assessed without, or can be accessed without the Board of Finance. But that I can think of right off the top of my head.
Yeah, we were just talking about the, not that number, number 62 there still. I mean, it seems to me that there's not a problem here. Like, do we need to add RTM or regulatory agency approval?
We're also a member of KERMA, right? I would assume. Connecticut.
A member of what?
Connecticut Interlocal Risk Management Agency, KERMA.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah,
So they usually have I think they call it a deductible, where the town would be responsible for, like, say, the first $1 million.
Yeah.
Right.
And so
I don't think we need
stop loss coverage.
I don't think we have to specifically. So first off, I think it's incorrect to say that the RTM has to approve it or the town legislature. Now, if he said, "Oh, you got to have the Board of Finance approve it," that might give me a little pause, because I think that might be true, but under the direction of the Board of Selectmen. So there's a lot of stuff that's under the direction of the Board of Selectmen. So the Board of Selectmen says, I want to go buy a new table. Say, it's not in your budget. Okay, so I'm going to make a recommendation to the Board of Finance to go buy a new table. And then they say, yeah, okay, we'll go buy a new table. It costs $50,000. Then that goes to the RTM. They say, yeah, okay, good, go buy a new table, right? That's under the direction of the selectmen.
Yeah. Okay.
So it doesn't seem to add any value for me, but.
Yeah. I'm not pushing for change. Now that I understand it, I'm good.
Unless I'm sure I'll hear about it if I'm wrong tomorrow. Town officer terms. Should we?
That's funny. That's funny, Joe. That is just.
Yeah.
That was funny.
Should we have term limits on town officers that are unelected professional department heads? So, Mr. Calabrese, this is.
You saying no, by the way.
Yeah, no, and
surprisingly.
Yeah. So,
Wait, Chris, I don't even know what you just said. Appointed department.
Well, some department heads don't have defined terms.
Right.
In the charter. And that's just the fact.
That's right.
So, in theory, should we have terms?
Civil servants with terms. I don't know, just seems bizarre.
Yeah. So it's funny because I talked to Mr. Calabrese about this. So, take his role. He's the director of Parks and Rec, right? And I guess back in the old days, there'd be an election and a new first select person would be elected, and everyone would put their resignation on his table, and he would say, "No, that's okay, Eric. We're going to keep you on," or "No, I'm going to do it. You're right. I'm canning you because you don't do a job right." So I don't know why he would bring this up, right? And no one brought up the fact that there should be. He's kind of making a statement that we shouldn't have it. He's talking about something, he's answering a question that hasn't been asked, I guess, is kind of where I'm going, right?
Right, like the building official, like the first one so far, it specifically says, we'll have a term of 4 years, the building official, a 9/8.
Right.
I'm trying to find other ones if there's actually a term. That was the one. Like, in practice, how does it work today? I mean, in practice, they don't resign.
I don't think,
And
even-
like
I don't
in
think,
mass.
I don't think even ceremonially they resign.
And they're not, and not in mass, they're not asked to resign. I mean, there may be specific instances where there may be differences of opinion that they make, that the first select person is allowed to make change.
Well, I mean, if you look under the section that says, what is it, 10?
I guess the tree warden has a term also. Remember now, it's 2 years now.
Oh.
We were recommending it to be 2 years. That's the other one. Oh, Board of Health, Director of Health, term, 4 years term. So there are a few.
I guess for any department head that is it right here? No, that's town officers. I guess in theory, for anyone that is an appointed town officer, I guess with a new administration, there's no guarantee of a job, right? I mean, new administration comes in and they say, like the town attorney, Department of Public Works, Parks and Rec Director, we had people in those roles that spanned 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 administrations, right?
Me, you're actually-
Town attorney never,
I mean, by defining a term of office, to me, you're actually inviting potentially more change, because then you have to take action, say, oh, the term's 5 years, term's up, like either reappoint you or maybe I should think for someone new.
Yeah.
I wouldn't touch it.
it's just strange to me that maybe he thought somebody recommended there be term limits because he's taking a stand on something that hasn't been posed.
Right.
So I don't think we have to take an action on it.
I agree, Chair.
Now, he does talk about the budget process. This could be, he says this should be looked at. This could be implementing group budget meetings during the daytime hours.
We already said no.
And right. I think I said it before, but part of being a department head is going to budget meetings. Sorry, kind of in the job description. The town treasurer, again, the town treasurer role, I haven't heard anybody say that it.
What is that?
I mean, looking at the intern benchmarking, it's town treasurer is part-time and only serves as a member of the Board of Library Trustees, as well as having duties conferred on town treasurers by state statute, namely keeping a record of all money belonging to the town, as well as money received and paid out, and serving as a treasurer of the town's trust funds.
That's in the
intern benchmarking. And I guess the point there is, perspectives have been raised that this is a job with little real responsibilities and is a waste of time for individuals qualified to do much more. That's maybe the question.
Well, there is a role called town treasurer. It is under section 9.1 as an appointed town officer. Town treasurer shall be appointed by the first selectman and may be removed by the first selectman without cause. The fiscal officer may also serve as the town treasurer, even though I don't think they currently do. No person employed by or in the purchasing department may at the same time be the town treasurer. Duties, town treasurer shall have the duties conferred on town treasurers by chapter 4 of the general statutes. And may serve as an ex officio member of the Board of Library Trustees, which again is so specific that I don't, the town treasurer may be part-time. I have to say, back to, and I'll see what the 2022 commission did. If I could find it quickly. Town. What is this under? It's under the category of appointed officers.
The only, the only thing I could think about here, just like they say in, 9(6)(b, the very last sentence, the town treasurer may be part-time. It's kind of a recognition that it's not a big job. What you could do is you could make a carve out in the single office requirement in the way that we have a single office requirement for appointed office. You can only hold one office at a time, right?
Right.
We do have a carve out specifically, says for the purpose of this paragraph, the single office requirement, the term town officer does not include justices of the peace or constables. So you can be a constable and something else.
Right.
But does include the members of the Board of Education. I'm not sure why it says that. In theory, if we really wanted to say, well, like from an efficiency perspective, do we really want to be able to let the treasurer do more or do other things? Could you potentially, you could do a carve out in single office? I mean, that might be a question for Mr. Becker, actually. We're on the way of, like, is it an efficiency play to allow them to create like efficiency if they thought that was a good idea?
You mean remove it as an official?
No, not an well, no, it sounds like we're required by the CGS to have a treasurer. The question is, do you potentially, if it's not much responsibility, are we potentially paying more than we need to for like a relatively, minor job? If you eliminated the single
It's an unpaid position.
Oh, it's unpaid?
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind then.
I'm
I just assumed we're paying people for this.
I'm pretty sure. I don't know that 100%. We can ask the question. I'll bring up the town treasurer. I couldn't.
I mean, this isn't a big thing, but it's also like if there's a job that we're all wondering like, why do we need it? Because it's required, but really, what does it do? Do we give the town more flexibility? To me, the only idea is a single office carve out.
That's it. Yeah.
But you'll ask.
Yes. Okay. The next one has been cleared up by our opinion, our lawyer's opinion. Recommends replacing the CRC vacancy.
No.
Yeah, yes. We've determined that we don't need to replace Ms. Biagini. Ask attorney to compare document previous notice. Yeah, okay. Yes, so number 74. So Ms. Ewing had made a comment that we should have the attorneys compare our document to what the 2022 document said. Now, I have two problems with that. One, in many cases that we're taking action, the 2022 commission took no action, right? Some cases, some of the action that 2022 commission took, we have not implemented. So what I've tried to do through all the sensitive body motions is, if there was something particularly great in there, I've specifically said I'd like to take the language in the CRC recommendation from 2022 and move it into this document. What I'm going to do when we get the final red line on all our markups, I probably will go back and forth between the two documents. But I think asking the attorneys to do it, that's just too hard. I don't even know how I tell somebody to do that. Because I think what she was implying here, if I remember the note, was, so if you didn't, so I'll make this up, but you didn't make any change to the police commission, but the 2022 commission did. Why is that? Well, you know why it is? Because no one made a comment about it this time. So I think there were some changes made in 2022, 23 that were not based in taxpayer input or department head input or had no input. It was the commissions saying, yeah, I think the police commission needs to be changed. And that's not what we're doing. So I don't think we need to take any action on this. Please feel free to disagree with me, commissioners.
No, I agree with you, Chair.
I think it's only really relevant if we made a wholesale kind of restructuring of the, like if we were kind of like the 2022 going to completely redesign the charter format and like move everything around.
Right.
I think that's a great idea. But
Yeah, I agree.
If we're like more surgically, redlining,
Yeah.
then I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah. So there's another great example that I just saw tonight. So in here, there's literally one sentence that says you can have 7 constables and 45 justices of the peace. End of sentence. In the 2022 document, there's section 5.2, justices of the peace. Section 5.4, it's constables. So again, this document that is our charter today is 53 pages. The recommendation from 2022 was 91. I'd like to see the number go down, but even if it stays the same, I'm kind of okay with that. So I think there is, and this isn't a criticism, I think there was a lot of good things, like the table of contents is amazing compared to what we have today, implement that. But I think Attorney Mendick thought that it was important to break out, like the constables, separate from the justices of the peace in a separate. I don't feel, again, it ain't broken. It's not that big a deal to me. It would be more important for me to have maybe a glossary in the back that says justice of the peace is under section 5.2 and constables are under section 5.2. That would be more important to me than a good table of contents, and a glossary where you can get back to it is much more important to me than breaking it out into a separate section. So, yeah. Independent testimony, seek testimony from independent and personally uninterested experts. Well, I think we've done that. I mean, Mr. Brown might debate if they're uninterested experts, because I can truly say, I mean, I haven't asked anyone from Darien to come in and talk about what's it like having 7 constables, right? That would be an uninterested party. So I don't know if I've violated this or not, but I think we've, asked for testimony from independent experts, if you will. Sought, thank you. It's late. Posting of our research, wants us to post and attribute our research.
I mean, the research we have, we include in backup, or it's this document realistically?
It really is this document, and the other research that the intern / your son did is posted on the website. So there's,
I think it's a non-issue, Chair.
Yeah, just to go on record, there's not a whole lot of research going on outside of these meetings that is relevant, because when it becomes relevant, we bring it up here, right? Suggested resources, got it. Timeline. Extending the timeline. So the first selectman has said if we need an extra week or two, no problem, we can fudge that a little bit. Mr. Brown, because of his extensive changes, had recommended that this process go on for, I think, up to a year. And my intention is to finish on May 13th as close to May 13th as possible in support of a document to support the November 2025 election.
Agreed.
So agree. I think we are going to have to look at it from a practicality perspective of just with the attorneys doing the red line.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We're asking them to do from the minutes. They have minutes through, I think, the end of February meeting, the February 28th.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that they said they didn't have one of the meetings in February. I'm like, don't.
Well, no, those need to be posted by Prue. Like
They're not posted yet,
they're
right?
approved by us, but they're not posted.
Right.
But they don't have the March meetings yet.
Right. So there's a lag.
Plus, there's some other things that we need to kind of probably talk about with them, where we need to seek some input from them. So I feel like the question is going to be more of wrangling the red line. And do we feel like the red line and then getting the town meeting scheduled for the review, that piece is, to me, the driver of, like, did we hit the exact timeline or not?
I think if we can wrap up the WPCA, WPCF next meeting, which I think is possible, that next period of time between the next meeting could be 100% dedicated to getting that red line ready, external to us, right?
Well, the only other thing in theory would be your commonalities of boards and commissions, I think is the other topic you wanted to hit. I think those are the last two that was on your list.
Yeah, I think that's right, yeah.
So,
But
which I think is,
point well taken. So April, I think, I don't want to cancel an April meeting either, but
no.
but I think
I mean, I guess maybe this is getting into next topics, but if we could have and I think it's on you, Chris, to look at the boards of commonality and kind of just finalize that.
Yeah, I'll
If
do
we
that.
could do WPCA and the commonality next week, or sorry, next
In
meeting.
2 weeks. I think I can do this. Yeah, it's just one a week has been a little.
Yeah, no.
So I think with between the next two, we'll be good.
Yeah, and if we could get that, the third, then kind of those two topics.
Right.
Plus probably a few more kind of miscellaneous stuff.
Absolutely. Let's see here. Town entity input, require town entities to provide input by resolution at town meetings. I'm not quite sure what that means.
I think more level of formality, maybe.
Oh, is that have another town meeting and, well, so we are gonna have another town meeting and then we can,
Well, I mean, I think, well, potentially, yeah, might be, maybe actual town meetings, but yeah, a level of formality there that, I mean, these are open, anyone can come see these.
Yep.
and listen to them 24 hours a day. Why are some departments in the charter and others not? Well, we've struggled with this, right? Why are some in the charter? Why are some in the code? And I think it's primarily driven by convenience for the code, right? And the fact that the charter isn't opened. But for the most part, the departments in the charter are mandated or are mandated by state statutes or otherwise deemed to be required or desired, I guess, to run the town, AKA the COO discussion we had tonight.
And we also, in a way, did kind of address this earlier when we said we did not want to do a full-scale review of all boards and commissions of whether they should or shouldn't be in the charter.
Right.
And that's kind of the logical outcome of this question.
Right.
Of doing that, which we're
Exactly.
going to do.
That's right. That's right.
Agreed. Is the current structure best for a town of our size?
No.
Well, it's working today. It's not broken today. I'll tell you, I don't think the charter is perfect today. I don't think the charter is going to be perfect when we finish with it. Having been on a board long enough to have this document was in my bag for 16 years. I mean, I opened this thing up a lot. You know, this was a resource for me, and I think the changes we're making are going to improve the document. Will they be perfect? And I think it is I think it's a good structure until, as we've talked about, till we do the next big change, which is change the form of government. I really think that's true.
Well, I think also with this, it sounds like with what we talked about is the kind of an accompanying recommendations, unofficial, like you'll say that, hey, we probably ought to have a plan to review the structure in more detail at some point.
Right, and it's funny, talking about organizational chart, and apparently this was quite a topic at the Board of Finance meeting a couple nights ago. Because there's been some criticism of the budget, and the criticism is tied around without a real organizational chart to say, you work for me, I work for the first selectman, and then it becomes, it's hard to follow the money chain when you don't know who reports to who, I guess is, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but. Let's see, reorganization of the department, discuss the following, 2006, section 6.1G. Oh, which is called reorganization of departments. 1 to 4, reorganizations. Notwithstanding any provisions to Board of Finance. So this says, notwithstanding any provisions of this charter, the Board of Selectmen may propose to the RTM a resolution which may alter the method of appointment to or organization of any town office, department, board, commission, or agency of the town, including combining or separating the duties of such individuals or bodies. The resolution will affect the change when enacted by the RTM in the form of an ordinance. So, as far as I can tell, if the week after we pass this and generate the new charter and put it out in the street, if the Board of Selectmen says, I want to break up planning and zoning, all they have to do is get the RTM to agree with it and make it an ordinance. I think that's what I'm reading. Am I wrong? Which may alter the Board of, which may alter the Board of Appointment to or organization of any town office, department, board, or agency of the town. That's a pretty broad statement. What is this on there?
So lawyers,
Yeah.
it starts with notwithstanding any provisions of this charter. That means,
Where are you reading from, Eric?
so what is this? This is,
6.1G.
Thank you.
yeah,
What does that mean now? What
Exactly.
is notwithstanding any provisions? Does that mean?
Us non-lawyers here are like, what?
Does that mean you can ignore it or you can't ignore it?
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to figure out. What does that mean?
Notwithstanding.
Right. In spite of.
Yeah.
Oh, in spite of any provisions.
So really,
This is pretty powerful paragraph.
yeah. Is this saying like the Board of Selectmen can change the charter when they want, essentially? Like around appointments and boards?
The way I'm reading it, they can, as long as they ask the RTM and they create an ordinance, yeah, it sounds like.
Is that what that says?
A resolution which may alter the method of appointment.
Notwithstanding any provision of the charter, the Board of Selectmen may propose to the RTM, may alter the method of appointment.
Jesus.
This might be a follow-up with an attorney, like what, like how much, is this like the power play clause?
Yeah, this is.
Yeah, I think you're reading that correctly.
Wow.
I will.
So Bill can go like dissolve things if he wants, like as long as he gets RTM approval?
I will address this with,
Wow.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, what are we doing here then, right?
Sounds like that's all we have to do is
It looks like, Ms. Ewing pointed out that this was also included in 2022, 426A through D.
426.
Yeah, 42.
Oh, here it is.
Or
Yep, notwithstanding, it's the same language.
Yeah, same language.
This is under
But then it adds B, C, and D. But then that B, C, and D then modify A, right?
No, but this 2, 3, and 4 are the same language. B is the ability to make such changes by ordinance shall not apply to the police department, the fire department, the board, Jesus Christ, the board of library trustees, any elected town office, elected town officer, elected board, and any other office or body where such change by ordinance is prohibited by state.
Oh, you're saying this is, I hadn't read the okay. So 2, 3, 4.
I think it's the exact.
Okay. You're saying, okay, now I get it.
Yeah.
So this is not, okay, I was reading that one paragraph by itself. I didn't know these carve outs. Okay.
So it appears as if any town office, the board that is appointed by the Board of Selectmen can be modified, as long as the RTM's cool with it and they write an ordinance. You can't mess around with the fire department, the police department, the Board of Library trustees, or anybody who's elected. Or if something is specifically prohibited by statute.
I think that falls in the category of a section that's only valid until it's actually challenged in a court of law.
But reading it, so that's a fair statement, but reading it, so the first select person could not separate TPZ because those are elected.
Correct.
But the first selectman could separate conservation and inland wetlands if they got the RTM to approve by ordinance. The way I read this.
That's the way I read it too, because they're appointed.
Yeah.
If it was strictly just an administrative reorg, I may not necessarily disagree with the authority, but it also says alter the method of appointment. You know what I mean? The method of appointment.
Yeah,
you're gonna enact an ordinance that conflicts with the charter on the method of appointment, and you think that's gonna get upheld? I mean, come on.
Well, but you know what I'm wondering, and I've already made myself a note that I have to talk to the attorneys. I'm beginning to feel like G1 is the language that allows the RTM to write and put stuff into the code through an ordinance. If this didn't apply, if this didn't exist, what gives the RTM the right to add the whatchamacallit, the Shellfish Commission or the
No, I disagree with that.
You disagree with that? Okay.
No, the legislative body has the power to legislate. They have the power to make laws. They have the power to form commissions. They have the power, but they don't have the power to conflict with direct provisions of the charter, of the organic law of the town. That would be like the equivalent of is like saying that the United States legislature has the power to, override the United States Constitution and rewrite it.
I guess that's a good point, right?
That's limited to the president now.
Wow.
I didn't mean to start something.
It's getting late.
Well, that's the last one. I think you're going to know as a follow-up, right?
It's funny because number 3 is really confusing me too. If the duties of 2 or more bodies are combined or separated by an ordinance, the existence, the method of appointment, the organization, powers, and duties of the prior town offices shall cease as defined in this charter, as defined by the ordinance. So this leads you to believe that the ordinance, you could write an ordinance and say, let's take conservation and break it into two pieces. And all those words that all those guys or people spent months writing in there, just ignore it. It's now part of the code.
But they couldn't eliminate inland wetlands because that's required by Connecticut general statute.
Yeah, piece, right, yeah. So that, maybe that's a bad example, but yeah.
No, I know, but I mean, there are other things, but in theory, you know, I don't think you're required to have a conservation department, are you?
I don't think so. You have to have the wetlands.
Yeah.
You have to have the whole thing. Method of election to town board.
So you're gonna follow up on this one though, right?
I'm gonna follow up on G 1 through 4.
Okay.
Yeah. Is
So
that
can
one?
you do me a favor and just, I'm not saying we're gonna discuss more, I just wanna show you things. So go back to discussed, the filter. Do
Yes.
yes.
No blanks.
Yeah, no blanks. And then, so like the ones on the, like that are orange colored on the
Yeah.
right, we could filter those, we don't have to filter by color. But those are ones where, Chris, I was thinking that it would make sense maybe if you and me, we got a meeting with the attorneys for an hour. Because there's a few of them that we just kind of need attorney opinions on to really kind of close out. And I tried to highlight the ones that
They
need
keep
some follow-up.
they keep offering that meeting, so yeah,
Yeah,
let's take
I
them
think
up
we
on
ought
it.
to do that.
I'm totally with you.
And also, if we did it next week, we could then help answer any questions they have around starting the red line.
Agree. Yep.
I
So
would
let's try,
recommend
yeah,
that.
I think that's a great idea. The other thing, let's definitely do that. The other thing is I wanted to run through this document. So again, there's only two pieces of things we really got to answer, and that's the first selectman's and the town clerk, right? So,
If you want, if you go back to the list of topics, column,
oops, sorry.
Cute dog.
so
Thank you.
so on discussed, unfiltered discussed, so column G, unfilter that. Yeah, okay, and then column F, that's required. So if you filter on yes.
Ah, got it. I like it.
That is the ones that were passed by the board, so the first selectmen's plus the town clerks. So we might want to go back and double check, but that is the list.
There was one on here that I thought that I don't remember discussing, and maybe
Okay.
it's just my consider user, we said we're not gonna do that. Terms of office, we did that. Board of Selectmen, contract, yep. Qualification, yep. Internal auditor, yes. Assessment system, yes. Senator at the town seal, gender neutral. Defining the process to set future compensation for the first selectman and the board of selectmen.
I think that's one we need to follow up on. So yeah, so that was, okay, we did review that.
We did.
But we agreed, and you were gonna talk to CCM to benchmark.
Was I?
Yes. We said we agreed we need a process, but we need to define it. And we thought rather than developing a new process from scratch, that you thought CCM might have a process we could just use. That's what I have in the notes there for that one. But you're right, that's one that's not been finalized.
Let's make that orange. Yeah.
It is orange.
Okay.
Yeah, it is-
Oh,
that
okay,
is
good,
orange.
good,
That
good.
one's orange. I mean, if you really wanted to, you could filter by one other thing in there. You can see which ones are both required and still require follow-up, because there are several. And those are the ones more that color orange.
Yeah.
So we need input.
Yeah, so there is a process. I know there's a process because I was involved in it for a couple times. Every so many years, there's I guess it's a committee is convened.
Yeah.
2 people on the Board of Finance of different parties, 2 people in the RTM, and they make recommendations about what the increase should be for first selectman, and Board of Selectmen is a stipend, so.
Yeah, but it sounds like it's somewhat
It's ad hoc. It's ad hoc at best. I don't know that it's ever been documented. It's one of those things like, oh, shoot, it's 2 years and we haven't figured out what the Board of Selectmen's, so let's convene a committee, so.
Yep.
It says right now, however, this practice is not required by the charter. And section 2 confirms that the compensation of the board is set by the Board of Selectmen.
Right, which they, that's the issue.
Which is a little incestuous, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I gotta set my own pay.
The members of all boards and commissions except the Board of Selectmen shall serve without compensation. Except as provided in this charter, the compensation of all towners shall be fixed by the Board of Selectmen.
Can we set the pay for the Charter Revision Commission?
I'm sorry?
Can we set the pay for the Charter Revision Commission while we're here?
We could double our current compensation.
We could. We could.
We could double our.
You could
Did you hear
double.
what I said?
You could double or triple zero if you want. Yeah, that's good.
I just told Commissioner McCann that we could double our current compensation.
Yeah, triple it if you want.
I knew you'd like
Okay.
that, Brian.
I did like that.
Yeah.
I got nothing else, I think.
All right.
So I think the key follow-ups are WPCA and Board of Commission commonalities at the next meeting on the 3rd.
Okay.
I'll update the list of topics, Chris, and then we can reach out to the attorneys and use that to kind of drive a discussion with them as well, hear where the specific follow-ups, and also just check in on the red line to make sure that's moving. I think those are the big items, right?
Yep.
I can get this kind of updated probably this weekend, realistically, on what we covered. Yeah.
Okay, so agenda item 11, discussion of the next topics, WPCA, WPCF. I will get everyone here for that. Commonalities of boards and commissions. And I'll leave the topic of discussion of overall CRC just as a
Yep.
kind of catch-all.
Yep. As we can kind of clean up and.
Okay, did I forget anything, commissioners on the Zoom?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Agenda item 12 is public comment. I don't see any other public, so I don't think we need to do that this evening. With that, I will offer my thanks for everyone who called in, and thanks for my vice chairman who had to sit here the whole night with me, and ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Brian. Really appreciate you jumping in, and Dan.